Good morning to everyone joining us today, and welcome for joining the seminar from whatever spot of the world you're joining us from. Thanks a lot for joining the 6th seminar on Intergenerational Connections, Bridging Time, Place and Engagement in Public Space. My name is Jihan Salim. I'm the Hoffman Wood Professor of Architecture in the School of Civil Engineering at the University of Leeds, and I'm the lead director of the Architecture and Urbanism Research Group at the University of Leeds. And I'm really excited and delighted to have you all today participating in the seminar. So thanks a lot for coming. Let me start a little bit with some context background about the Architecture and Urbanism Research Group at the University of Leeds in a very quick, brief narrative about it. So the group was founded in 2018 and it has over 25 members between PhD students, early career researchers, research fellows, and academics. We are a multidisciplinary group. We are interested in conducting research and practice in architecture in relation to the built environment. So we do understand architecture as a human and societal construct that covers a broad spectrum of the built environment and cities as well. We look at it from different points of views. We look at it from the social, the cultural, the technical, the political, and as an economic product as well. We also look around buildings and objects. So our key interest is actually about looking at creativity, explorations, and the relationship between processes and products in the architectural practice. So the research we do in the group is a wide range of architecture and urban design interpretations, policies, guidelines, developing toolkits as well, developing new interventions and engagement on grassroots levels, and working with local communities on sustainable development goals. We are also motivated by the desire to achieve significant impact in the respective local context of that we work in. So the broad range of countries and cities that we work in is broad, and we're happy to be working on that. Eamonn is back and unmuted. Welcome back, everyone.
Yes, okay,
excellent.
sorry.
I can hear you. Yeah, okay, excellent. So I'll just continue the introduction that I started. So the architecture group as well leads a number of pioneering projects spanning across multiple cities in the global south with a wider umbrella that responds to the sustainable development goals, as I mentioned in my previous minute. The group is very active in hosting activities and seminars and workshops similar to the one that we have now, looking at public engagement events, conferences, seminars, workshops, training, and we also provide opportunities for networking, scholarly exchange, development, PhD supervision, and hosting early opportunities at the University of Leeds. So this is who we are as a group at the University of Leeds. Going back to the scope of the seminar today. So as I mentioned, this is our 6th seminar hosted by the group, and it's organized by our group member, Jackie, who you have been in touch with for the past couple of months, sending her the abstracts, getting communications, refinements, details. So thanks a lot, Jackie, for all the hard work behind that. We had multiple seminars before. I'll go through a quick introduction, a quick title of some of them. We looked at heritage, memory, and identity in 2020. Our second seminar was about smart heritage and sustainable cities in 2022. In 23, we had our third seminar on culture and diversity, the meaning of home. Our following 4th seminar was on belonging and students' experiences in higher education institutions. Our 5th and latest seminar was on the management and protection of cultural heritage against human risks. So you will see from the titles the wide range of topics we look at, and this is some associated by the research that we do in the group and also by the PhD students, topics and research that who are doing an excellent job. The seminar today is designed to emphasize on the theme of intergenerational public spaces. So why is public spaces important? Why intergenerational discussions are very important and timely to look at and dig deeper into this. Intergenerational relationships are particularly crucial in contemporary times with various cities facing different challenges that need to be looking that researchers like us need to be looking at to improve interactions between generations. These spaces and these public spaces are areas where communities are designed to be inclusive, accessible, and all these spaces accessible to people of all ages, from children to older adults as well. We also see these spaces that intend to facilitate interaction, communication, and engagement among individuals from different generations, and looking at how they prompt social cohesion and fostering a sense of belonging and community, and encouraging the exchange of knowledge among them and the experience among people of different age groups. The examples of these spaces, of intergenerational spaces, are a lot. They include parks, playgrounds that cater for children and adults. We look also at community centers offering activities and programs for people of all ages, libraries that host events and workshops, and the list is very long. These spaces they have also their own services, their own amenities that cater for the diverse activities and spatial practices of the different age group interacting in these spaces. So overall, we would like to dig deeper into understanding intergenerational public spaces that plays a crucial role in creating inclusive cities where people are able to thrive, connect, and contribute to their communities. So from the slide I'm presenting here, we will have for today's seminar 2 different tracks. The first one on exploring public space, design, functionality, time flow, and engagement, and the second one on intergenerational cohesion. So we are so excited to see the topic of the seminar that has received a wide interest from scholars and early career researchers from across the globe, not only from the UK only. I think we have 96 registrations so far for the event. We have about 48 now. I think more are coming on the way. So we actually, I just have to say that we have received a wide and a long list of abstracts, and we had to make a little bit of difficult decisions to fit the time that we have for their seminar today. And we wanted to try to include everyone as possible. So we hope the seminar is a great platform for exchanging ideas today, exchanging theories, practices, and case studies, and will help also to build networks for researchers, sharing communal ideas like this and interest. So actually, we are hoping that our links and networks continue after the seminar, and we keep in touch for future events as well. We also hope that all of you will gain more inspiration and reflection from the various talks that you're going to hear today, and we welcome everyone to interact in the Q&A sessions that are dedicated for further discussions. So I'm not going to take long. We have a full house event today and a long lineup of speakers, and I would not take any more time. We have, as you see, we have 2 panels, each will have 5 speakers who will present their discourses on the use of development of intergenerational public spaces. To save time, we're going to have all the questions at the end of each panel, at the end of each session. So please feel free to prepare your questions during the talks taking place, and also please add your questions in the chat box, and we will be harvesting the question and bringing them to the Q&A session. So with no further delay, I'm really delighted to welcome and have Eamonn Canniffe from Manchester School of Architecture, our keynote speaker. And his talk today is titled Design and Access, the Recent Renovation of 2 Squares in Manchester. So Eamonn will share his views on the recent renovations in 2 squares in Manchester and the impact of the local urban landscape and public spaces, as well as the bond between old and new buildings. A little brief introduction about Eamonn's bio. He teaches on the MA Architecture and Urbanism and the MA Architecture and Adaptive Reuse at Manchester School of Architecture. He was born in Manchester in 1960 and was educated at Cambridge and Harvard universities. In 1996, he held a Rome scholarship in the fine arts at the British School at Rome. He is the author of Urban Ethic Design in the Contemporary City by Routledge in 2006, and The Politics of Piazza, The History and Meaning of the Italian Square by Ashgate at 2008, which he presented interesting Italian studies at the Harvard University as well in 2009. He is the co-author with Tom Jeffries of the Manchester Architecture Guide in 1999, and with Peter Blundell-Jones of Modern Architecture through Case Studies 1945 to 1990 by the Architectural Press 2007. So let's welcome our keynote speaker, Eamonn, and Eamonn, the floor is yours. And thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure and a privilege to be speaking to you. Can you hear me? Yeah, great. Okay, just checking. Sorry, I had a bit of a problem with my microphone before. So I'm going to talk a little bit about two particular spaces which have been renovated in Manchester recently, and as was described, my long-standing interest and long-standing research has been in public space in relation to architecture, particularly, and so it's always a great irony and a great disappointment for me that I live in a city where the public space is really badly treated, really badly neglected. On the whole, there are some exceptions, and the issue of the use of public space by different generations is something which has come into focus in these particular two recent spaces, recently renovated spaces. So first, a little bit of kind of background about me. So for good or ill, unfortunately, I'm becoming rather notorious about my attitude to the redesign of Manchester, and this has led very recently to a paper or a report rather I did for Save Britain's Heritage about endangered heritage in Manchester, and then what's come from that really is a series of interviews and comments in the press about the state of architecture in Manchester. So what you see on the screen here is a spread from the Manchester Evening News from January this year, where I actually got to be a centerfold in the paper. Now, the image is rather grainy because somebody took exception to what I said in about the city, and it was removed from the paper's website within a few hours. And we've never really had a satisfactory explanation as to what the problem was, because it took quite a long time for the article to be produced. And then when it was produced, it was almost immediately removed. Somebody managed to snap this picture of the printed version, but the digital version disappeared. The suspicion is that I don't want to make it sound like a conspiracy theorist, but certain interests were not pleased with what I said about how the city is going forward. So I'm in a kind of position of being a very, very vocal critic. If you go to the next slide, this has led to further articles. So in the Observer about a month ago, Rowan Moore was also kind of quoting me and my criticism of what the massive scale of new building in Manchester is doing to the public realm, because we have a situation where the new skyscrapers that are being produced, first of all, it was it was 50 stories, then it's kind of 65 stories now. There's one proposed for 72 stories. That these massive changes to the skyline are having a dramatic impact at ground level. And the public realm of the city is sorely neglected. So this is very puzzling and kind of worrying development as far as I'm concerned. And unfortunately, or fortunately, this is gaining more traction, and more people are cottoning on to this idea. So even this week, I was interviewed by a French financial magazine on exactly the same matter. So the kind of the focus on Manchester as this kind of urban experiment is getting more kind of international attention anyway. I'm going to talk about two particular spaces which are happening in this context. If you go to the next slide, please. Now, this is a Manchester in 1817. At the after about 50 years of industrial growth, and this is the point at which international visitors were coming to the city, coming to the town as it still was, to witness industrial experimentation and what it was doing to the urban environment. Famously, Alexis de Tocqueville comes to Manchester shortly after this map was produced, and he stands looking into the polluted river Irwell, which was probably the most polluted river in the world at the time, and he declared, "From this filthy sewer, pure gold flows." All the money of the city came out of environmental disaster. So for like 200 years, people have looked at Manchester as a kind of as a site of urban change, quite often in negative terms. Next slide, please. There have been attempts to renovate the city comprehensively. It's a laissez-faire environment, but there were attempts to renovate the city completely. So after the Second World War in 1945, there is a plan illustrated here for the complete rebuilding of the city over the next 100 years. That's why the plan is dated 2045. It's a plan for the next century, and in this situation, the city was to be comprehensively replanned around increased car use. Essentially, that was the kind of key factor at the time, and because of economic circumstances, the economic weakness of Britain after the Second World War, very little of this happened, and really there has only been piecemeal planning for the whole of the city since that date. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about Stevenson Square first of all. I'm talking about two spaces, Stevenson Square and Lincoln Square. So Stevenson Square is here. It is in I think this is a photograph from 1891, and the square was planned in about 1780 as a part of an extension of the town at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, with to be a typical Georgian square with at the centre of a gridded new extension with two major roads crossing the space and with Georgian townhouses around it. Of course, this was almost immediately overtaken by the massive industrial development that was happening at the time, the boom shock city. And so 100 years later, or just slightly over 100 years later, what you see really are industrial premises around the square, some factory chimneys you can see in the distance there, and this is at the centre of a manufacturing zone which remains in operation for another 70 or 80 years. Anyway, 100 years after this photograph was taken in 1994, the area around Stevenson Square was redesignated by the city as the Northern Quarter, the name by which it's now known. And Stevenson Square at its centre was still being used for transport. There was still a bus station in the square at this point, and a kind of route between different parts of the city. But what happened with the Northern Quarter was that the nighttime economy began to take over the district. More residences in old industrial warehouses, etc., but also a very strong growth in the number of bars, nightclubs, restaurants, etc., around the square. So the desire has been to turn it into more of a public open space and less of a traffic junction. Next slide, please. This is an example of what the city, what the Northern Quarter is facing. So we became involved with the Northern Quarter as a result of the proposal for this building, which is now constructed, which is an 18-storey glass tower constructed at the edge of the Northern Quarter in defiance of the conservation policies that control the area, supposedly control the area. And so, provoked by this imposition on the Northern Quarter and strong change to its character, a lot of people were very worried about corporate businesses taking over what were independent properties, independent businesses, and changing the nature of the area, which had developed into quite a relatively pleasant residential area. Next slide, please. So a group of students, there were 84 in this group. We produced a master plan for the Northern Quarter, and this is a kind of student drawing showing the kind of overview with Stevenson Square in the top middle of the image, where you see the four canopies in alignment. And this project received a lot of attention. It was even presented to the then leader of the council, Sir Richard Leese, and it had the support of the local community group, the Northern Quarter Forum. And what we were proposing really was pedestrianisation of Stevenson Square and the spreading out from that of more of a walkable neighbourhood for the Northern Quarter, with Stevenson Square at the centre of it. Next slide, please. This is a photograph in Stevenson Square, showing our model, which was on display in the Fred Aldous store on the that fronts onto Stevenson Square. This is from about early 2019, so just over 5 years ago. Next slide, please. And you can see again, this was a very large project site that the students worked on, and this very crudely made but impressively scaled model was on display in the square for a month or so, to try and provoke the idea that Stevenson Square, which you can just see in the to the right of the gentleman's head, should be radically reworked. Now, this was 2019. Next slide, please. One of our colleagues even produced a design like this, where we would build a large open framework in the space that could be used as a stage, could be used as a backdrop, could be used as a just as a canopy, as a shelter, that would radically change the nature of the space and remove the possibility of it being used for car traffic. Anyway, this was 2019, of course. 2020, 4 years ago, everything changed. Next slide, please. This is Stevenson Square in August or September 2020. So what happened in a lot of cities at the time was pedestrianisation came about because there was no traffic, because during the lockdown there was very little car traffic. There was some delivery vehicles, but there were very few. The use of roads was at its kind of a minimum, and spaces with the need to kind of be outside and in the open air, spaces such as this, where there were bars already around, were taken over by the hospitality premises around them. So this is the square. Really, to us, this was kind of what we wanted to see in the design project from 2 years earlier, but it had come about not really through permanent change, but through a kind of health circumstances, which had meant this is what happened. The desire then was, having seen the square like this, the city then did decide to proceed with a new plan, essentially pedestrianising most of the space. Next slide, please. So this was their image of how the square would look in the when they were proposing the changes to the traffic routes and the cycleway, which was being introduced to the square. And it's a good image of a pleasant public open space, large area of new paving. The premises on the left-hand side were being encouraged to spill out further into the square, where they get the quite good sunlight during the summer months, and create a pleasant urban space with very little traffic passing through it. You still have a road crossing on Lever Street, which is where the bus is in this image, and this is what people were expecting to happen. So next slide, please. But really, you might say that was a kind of that was a bit of a fiction, because the money to do the renovation of the square had come about through traffic replanning, and it was controlled really by the transport planners, who were redesigning the square to include a new cycleway. Manchester is apparently is the capital of cycling, although most cyclists who cycle through Manchester seem to raise an eyebrow at this title. And so this was the part of the documentation about how the new cycleway would go through the square, and the measures then to provide protection between cyclists and motor vehicles. Next slide, please. And this is what was built. So it's a complete. It bears no relation to the image that was promoted. This is Stevenson Square in December or January this year, when it was completed. Most people thought the work took ages. It took about a year, and most people thought, oh, they're doing kind of temporary works, and then they're going to come in at some point and they're going to pave the whole thing, which is what was in the original drawings, and there's going to be trees and there's going to be greenery, and instead what you get is tarmacking virtually the entire space, signage for the cycleways, and then a whole series of new traffic lights which are in the middle of the space, and then anti-terrorist barriers in the form of large concrete slabs, which are scattered across the space. They're painted in very bright colours, and they're repainted and changed all the time. But most people just thought this is not what they were promised. Now, the photograph in this is from an article where a blind resident is commenting on how dangerous the new space has become in comparison to what was there before, because it seems as if all normal safety measures and consultations seem to have, apparently they took place, but no one can really believe that anyone advised that this was a kind of good way of designing the space. Now, we have to kind of ask a question about why is it like this? In the weekends in particular, on into the night, Stevenson Square will be host to lots of young people who are going to the bars around the Northern Quarter, and this is intended as a kind of almost as to appeal to a youthful generation, assuming really perhaps that they're too inebriated to notice that it's extremely badly constructed, very poor quality, that it has no very little flexibility for the different things different events that are used do use the space, and neither does it work very well for the cyclists who are given this route through the space. So this is a kind of complete embarrassing mess. Quite often in Manchester, when a new space or a new building or new thoroughfare is inaugurated, there will be a bit of publicity from the city council, from the various local councillors, promoting the space. There's been nothing, just an embarrassed silence about this space from the city council. And it was at the same time that the city was receiving a lot of attention in December last year, which I'll return to at the end of the talk. If you notice, we're looking down through Stevenson Square towards Thomas Street, and Thomas Street will crop up again at the end of the lecture. Anyway, this is one example. Next slide, please. So the next example I want to talk about very quickly is Lincoln Square, which is close to Albert Square in the city centre, near Manchester Town Hall. And this is a drawing from 1962 by David Gosling, when he was a young employee of the council, and he was commissioned to produce a new design for this area. The top image is a view really looking down from the town hall clock past the Albert Memorial towards this new space, which was being designated as part of a route down to the new Crown Court building. Next slide, please. That was a kind of 1960s to 1970s development, and about 8 years ago, 8 or 10 years ago, the process of the replacing of those buildings started, and at the same time, the pedestrianised space. This space was redesigned as a new public space with the former Peace Garden relocated to the space. And this is one of the design drawings when you show this kind of new smooth space. Now, next slide, please. This is the concept drawing of it. Next slide, please. And this is as built, the new office building on one side, and the new space, the new smooth, very beautifully paved space in front of it. Unfortunately, this immediately began to attract skateboarders. Now, not unfortunately for me, but unfortunately for the owners of the office building. And you see in this photograph a group of young guys who, as soon as the square was finished, realised this was a perfect space for skateboarding, which was not the intention of the designers in any way whatsoever. There are a certain number of anti-skate measures in the seating and in the design of the curbs and stuff like that, but it's been very ineffective. Next slide, please. Again, this produced a lot of comment on social media. One particular furore grew up around it. Next slide, please. Even in the property pages, they were trying to account for why the new office building had been so bad in attracting new tenants. And as is in this article, they refer to the bloody skaters, the bloody skateboarders. They're assumed to have been really deterring tenants from taking on the office space. Now, this was designed, this public space was designed as somewhere where there would be a reflective space in the Peace Garden. There's kind of ceremonial route, which is a part of the 1945 plan, and they're in the kind of David Gosling plan from 1962. And as happens in a lot of cities now, this kind of taken on commercial activities for Christmas fairs, etc., etc. But the skateboarders dominate the space, and so the intention of the space and the intention of the designers has been compromised, shall we say, not thwarted, but compromised by a particular generation. Next slide, please. And they have great, great fun and enjoyment. They really enjoy the space. There aren't people around to kind of interfere with them, and they have, right in the centre of the city, they have their own little world, which is very good. We want young people to enjoy and feel safe in our city centres. But here they've made it for themselves in defiance of the design agenda. Next slide, please. And it is a kind of very hard corporate space. They rather unusually, they've reduced the number of trees in the space rather than increase them. Although it's been a pedestrianised space for many decades. And next slide, please. And it's a kind of an aspect where the chance to design a shared space between different groups within the city has, in actuality, has been compromised. It's much more money was spent on this space. It's very, very carefully designed, but the use of the space is in reality is very different again from the intention. And although in Stevenson Square they spent very little money on it and it looks really bad, and in fact is kind of problematic in lots of ways, here it's not the lack of money or the lack of care, it's the circumstances have overtaken the space. But we want people to appropriate the public spaces of their city, and we have genuine public spaces which are in the definitely in the public realm. They're not privatized space with public uses, are few and far between in a city like Manchester. Anyway, my last slide. Next slide, please. So back to the Northern Quarter. And this is what happened on Thomas Street, at the other end of that image of Stevenson Square, at the same time as that photograph came from December 23, when Chanel, the House of Chanel, arrived and took over Thomas Street for a fashion show, 15 minutes for their fashion show on the 7th of December. And they built a canopy along the street, which you can see in the image, and they did a catwalk show down the street. Now, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we couldn't have imagined that this kind of event would happen in the Northern Quarter, but they made use of the public space. They made use of the backdrop of the Northern Quarter to create this great use of public space. They took it out of public use for a while, for a couple of weeks, so they could set this thing up, and it cost them, apparently it cost £8 million to do the entire thing. That was the level of investment. But this is happening just yards from where Stevenson Square was being produced as a permanent rearrangement of the square for exactly this kind of event. And and it is possible, if you put in enough money and you put in enough imagination, to create really interesting uses for the public spaces in Manchester, but we're not getting them, apart from for 15 minutes on a very rainy December night. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Eamonn. Really interesting and inspiring talk, and looking at two really close to my heart spaces in Manchester that I normally visit most of the time when I visit Manchester. So thanks a lot. I'm not going to reflect much more now, but I'll just open the floor for any questions from the audience before you move to the first panel. Is there any questions, please raise your hand and go ahead. Any questions? Yes, Mai, yeah, please go ahead.
Hello, Eamonn. Thank you so much
Hello.
for your presentation. Yeah, as I've been living in Manchester, so I've been familiar with those changes that you have been mentioning in your discussion. I just wanted, I don't know if it's a question or a reflection, but how do you think could the community be empowered within this process? How they can take a position, whether opposition or with or against in this process? We have seen there are a lot of approaches that have been done globally, that community initiatives have been successful. But how this can be reflected within this kind of context, I don't know. Is it the reality that the identity or the culture, there's a gap now that maybe younger generations, they cannot relate much to what was happening before, or I don't know. It's like, so what's your reflections on this?
Yeah, I think in the case of Lincoln Square, that's really in a kind of business district, rather unusually now in Manchester city centre. There's no residential development at all around that space, which is is kind of unusual, and so the community there really is the business community, and they have a perception of what they want from the space, and that they want a kind of a pleasant corporate environment for lunch on office days, and in the evening after work, a pleasant space. And they seem to be unwilling to accept that the skateboarders use the space, but the skateboarders just turn up and and do their thing, and then they skate off, and they're there for a couple of hours, but they treat it as their space, and the corporate community kind of don't quite get it. Yeah. In contrast, in Stevenson Square, there are a lot of people who live in the Northern Quarter, and there was the Northern Quarter Forum was kind of quite an active group for a while, opposing that tower, campaigning on other issues, although it seems to have kind of not be quite as active as it used to be. And they were consulted initially on the design of the square. They thought they were going to get this beautiful space, but they've just been left with a kind of an embarrassing mess. And the community were involved, but then they seem to have been shortchanged. So I don't know. It's kind of very, very dispiriting in our context. It will no doubt come up as an issue in the local elections in a couple of months or so about what's happened to that space. But the voice of individuals and community groups in Manchester is generally ignored by the city council. That would be, my overriding impression.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? No more questions. So I'll like to thank Eamonn so much for your interesting talk, Eamonn, and thanks a lot for coming today and joining us. It's been really great to catch up as well.
Yeah.
And see you after long years.
Yeah.
But I hope you're able to stay with us for a while. But it's really up to you. But thank you so much again for the talk. So I'll move directly to chair the first track of the seminar today on exploring public spaces, design functionality, time flow, and engagement. And our first speaker is Dr. May Nuwaysar, and her presentation is titled Her City, Making Women Visible in the Design of Public Open Spaces. Dr. May is an architect and urbanist with a background in heritage conservation and sustainable urban development. Her teaching and research expertise advocates active community engagement in the urban planning decision-making process. She works with city council, community organizations, and international partners for better insights into power dynamics between different stakeholders. May, the floor is yours. Please share your screen. Yeah, so May, if you can share your screen, please, and keep to the time if possible, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's all good now, May. Go ahead, please. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the presentation. So, good morning, everyone. My name is May Nuwaysar. I'm a lecturer in architecture in University of Leeds. And today I'm going to talk about the topic, Her City, making women visible in the design of public open spaces. So I'm going to start talking about community engagement and participatory planning. So this is a highly complex process, both on theoretical and practical levels. And this makes us think and reflect and ask the questions. So who speaks and who listens? So from a feminist approach, there has been challenges in the planning theory, and this can be seen as a corresponding to hierarchical dualities. So if we want to talk about the first one, which is theory and practice. So Snyder states that even though many practicing planners' ideals are just for justice and equity within planning policies, but yet it is not manifested in the actual practice within planning departments. Therefore, she argues if inequalities and domination continue to result from planning practices, as they often do, one must examine the theory and the methodologies behind the practice, and what is discovered there must be applied. And then when we move to the next one, which is knowledge and experience, this is when we reflect on that women traditionally have been seen and associated with the emotional, irrational, and subjective, while the planning expertise is based on rational absolute knowledge and independent of time, space, and social identity. So the more marginalized individuals are, the less credibility they have and the less value their inputs in. These critiques have been dealt with by several feminist planners who call for openness to other forms of knowledge and the acceptance of embodied experiences. So this, in line with this argument, this leads to the third one, which is bridging the private and public dichotomy. And then here, when we are thinking about planning as practice or theoretical level, it is traditionally dealt with public sphere. Yet there are a lot that is happening in the private one that, again, it is reflected and impacting the public sphere. So in recent decades, feminist theory and feminist practices have been focused to challenge the taken for granted assumptions that women share a common experience of oppression by men. So with this small and brief background, there were a lot of documents that have been highlighting the importance and the significance of including women, whether so women's rights, violence against women's, and other aspects for women's inclusive or equal city planning processes. So one of the key documents was the Vienna, the 1993 one, which was highlighting and stressing the importance of eliminating violence against women and other women's rights within this document. There were others. I'm just selecting few of them to show that this have been highlighted significantly through the literature. And one of the key approaches was the Vienna gender mainstreaming one that highlighted the importance of how to design public spaces or cities that is integrating both genders or inclusive gender city design. Even though this has been an important aspect a long time ago, yet there are current trends, and this has been a challenge that has been happening all the time. The first one is 95% of 500 participants in a Delhi study, they stated that they usually carry with them an object or for self-protection. Also, how they change their clothes all the time they go out, not to avoid feeling uncomfortable while being out their homes. 55% of women as well have shown that they in European Union has experienced a form of sexual harassment since the age of 15. 71% of women experience sexual harassment in public areas in the UK, and 18% of women always or often feel unsafe when exercising an outdoor public space. 84% of women have experienced sexual harassment in Leeds city centre, which is higher than the national statistics. So this leads us to one of the concepts that have been discussed in the literature, which is the paradox of women's fear. So women who are less likely than men to experience violence in public and much more likely to experience it at home consistently reported fear of men in public. Even though feminist perspective takes power dynamics into account, women's experience of threat of sexual violence creates this paradox and explain it, which means that different women are experiencing different fear of crime between than men. And this explains how this paradox has been created. So we're going to Leeds. This is the part of a pilot study project that exploring women's safety and security in public open spaces. And this paradox of women's fear in public open spaces in Leeds lies in the tension between perception of safety and actual security. As you can see in this map, that 37.8% of crimes are violent crimes committed in Leeds, which means that the violent crimes rate is at 153% of the national crime rate. Despite the efforts to enhance safety measures, including increased surveillance, improved lighting, many women still experience apprehension when navigating public open spaces. This paradox underscores the complex interplay between the subjective feelings of fear and objective measures of safety, highlighting the need for a comprehensive strategies to address both perceptions and realities of security for women in urban environments. So when participants were asked how do they describe or explain or interpret safety in public spaces, they have mentioned different aspects of how this kind of safety is understood. This is due to their different backgrounds, cultural, and even their experience in public open spaces. One of the examples that they have mentioned here, as you can see from this word cloud, They have mentioned, for example, using high fences in public spaces make them feel protected. The feeling of enclosure makes them feel more secured in public spaces. While others, for example, mentioned that those kind of high fences make them feel that they are trapped and there is no place to go. And this again reflects parts of the discussions on how the violence that they have been facing into in their homes is reflected in their experience of safety and security in public spaces. So even though women were asked, for example, whether they do feel safe during the day in public spaces or at night, and 70% of them mentioned that they fairly feel safe during the day in public open spaces in Leeds. And then when we're talking about the dark or at night, the percentages is varying. So 46 is not feeling very safe, others feeling fairly safe or not at all safe in public open spaces. And then when we were reflecting on their experiences in public open spaces, you can see that there's 85% of them have been facing sexual harassment or antisocial behavior in public open spaces, which again reflects their perception and understanding of what does safety mean to them in public open spaces. So when we're reflecting, so why do you think those public spaces are not safe in Leeds? And of course, the most common ones that poor lighting, poor maintenance, lack of people, a lot of them of women of different ethnic backgrounds, for example, they mentioned that they feel more safe when they see women like them. So different, and the diversity of the women themselves are important, not only just women, diversity in women as well is very important for them when they are using public spaces. The other point here, when we were just asking them about the usability of the spaces, and it was interesting that most of them highlights that when they are using the public spaces, it is just passing by. And then the second one was socializing, and this reflects the different age representation of the participants that were asked. And then again, when we reflect on the other types of activities or usability of the spaces that they can use, and we can see women actually using the spaces, eating out, for example, or children activities, we will find that the percentages are getting lower, which means that, again, the nature of the public spaces, again, it represents or reflects when part of the discussion that they were talking about, the public spaces are not feeling, are not giving them the feeling that they are welcomed in those spaces. So if you want to reflect on two key points as initial findings of what we're doing, this is because this is still an ongoing project. There are two factors that actually influencing and shaping this understanding of safety and security for women. The first part is external factors. Let's say, for example, the spatial configuration and socio-cultural constructs. So there is belief that certain cultures, for example, reflect that women should be, or the majority of their time that they are spending at home, which again can reflect their perception when they are using public spaces for their daily business activities. The other part could be the internal factors, such as individual characteristics and place. So the perceptions of safety is highly individualized here and subject to personal risk acceptability. So it ranges from the age, physical ability, and sociocultural background that reflects their perception of safety. So if we want to reflect on this, if we are trying to combine both factors, the external and internal factors, so we can create, or we can able to enhance the perception and the image of those spaces by creating positive associations that can foster the place attachment and potentially reducing street crimes and improving safety perceptions. So just as a reflection, when I'm reaching the end of my presentation, so when we are thinking about how we can create this balance, so engaging with rights and gender in urban planning requires an approach, avoiding rigid directives. Again, this can be part of the wider thinking, when we are thinking about gender perspectives on rights, for example, which underscores the need for caution regarding the transformative potential of current conceptualization of the right to the city. And also, urban experiences can empower or marginalize, emphasizing the potential, the political dimensions of everyday life. So, can dynamic representations of urban spaces foster this kind of discussions and advance claims to spaces? So, thank you so much. This is the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, May. Please, if you have any questions for this presentation, just prepare it for a verbal discussion in the Q&A session, or please add it in the chat box and we will harvest that very shortly. But thank you very much, May. Thanks a lot. Our next talk is titled Analyzing the Transformation of Protected Areas into Regional Public Spaces, a Theoretical Exploration in Ruvubu National Park, Burundi. Our speaker is Anisette Nafiesha, is a master's student at Beijing Jiao Tong University at the School of Architecture and Design, majoring in urban and rural planning and member of International Association for China Planning. He is currently an urban and rural management consultant in China as well. So the floor is yours, and please share your screen with us so we can see the presentation.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Thanks a lot. We can hear you, but can you please share your presentation, share your screen?
Yes. The title is Analyzing the Transformation of Protected Area into Regional Public Space, a Theoretical Exploration in Ruvubu National Park in Burundi. On the background, we will say the public space in a regional national park, the objectives and aims, the methodology and the methods, integration of the findings, the data collection and analysis, the conclusion, and the prospect. Burundi is the country in the East Africa, with the population with the size of 27 square kilometers. The land occupies 25 square kilometers, and the water occupies around 2,000 square kilometers. It is bordered by the countries Rwanda, Tanzania, and the Congo. This is how the public spaces look like in the urban area, and the under is in the rural area. This is the community centers, while the under is the street and the square, the working. The Ruvubu National Park is located in the northeastern part of Burundi, and Burundi has 14 protected areas, whereas Ruvubu is the largest park in the country with the area of 508 square kilometers. The Ruvubu National Park has a cultural and natural historical significance. Here you see those people are drumming, which is have the cultural significance in our country. Here we have the international visitors who come to see the beauty of the park. This is the park, the World Park, which passes through 4 provinces: Changuzo, Ruigi, Kars, and Muyinga. This is the section of all the park. It is called the national park is called the Ruvubu because it contains the Ruvubu River, which gives the name of the park. And the Ruvubu contains a lot of species inside, like the bird, the hippopotamus, the antelopes, and so on. On the public space, as the first speaker has introduced it, broadly defined relates to all those parts of the built and the natural environment, public and the private, internal and external, urban and the rural, where the public have a free or of not necessary and restricted access. It encompasses all the streets, squares, or other right of way, whether predominantly in residential, commercial, community, civic uses, the open spaces and the parks, the open countryside, the public, private spaces, both internal or external, where public access is welcomed. There are the categorization and the uses. They are characterized in buildings, infrastructures. Like the buildings, you have the walls, the windows, the signage, the building lightings, the decorations, and so on, as the example of the public spaces. About the infrastructure, we can say like the laws, like the bus lanes, the traffic lights, the telecommunication equipments, the street lighting, and so on, the public toilet. Those are the example of the public spaces. Here we can see the public spaces in the landscape and the public activities in the public spaces. About the landscape, there are the trees, the plant beds, the paving, road surfaces, and so on. And the people go in the public spaces. Some of they go for the event, for gathering, the street trading, others in the markets or the kiosk, whereas others go in the park for different events and the playgrounds. Here we are going to see the public spaces in regional and the landscape perspectives in some selected best practices. Here we have the example of the landscape of the public space in the Joshua Community Park in China, where people are enjoying with different pattern uses containing different characteristics, including the children, the women's, the older people, and so on. This is the Simpson Desert in Australia, and we have Nyerere National Park in Tanzania, and Kenneth National Park in Scotland. How can we make sure that in our public space planning, we are planning with the sustainability? First thing, we have to see if we are working with the green infrastructures. We need to introduce the trees, the shrubs, and the green roofs to improve air quality and provide shade, to implement permeable pavement and the rain gardens to manage stormwater runoff, incorporate native plants to support biodiversity and reduce maintenance. We have to make sure about the efficient land use. We have to give priority to pedestrians-friendly design to encourage walking and reduce reliance on cars, to create mixed-use spaces that combines residential, commercial, and recreational functions, to maximize the use of vertical rooftop gardens to optimize spaces utilization. We need also to work on the renewable energy integration. In this point, we need to install solar panels, wind turbines, and energy sufficient lighting to reduce reliance on fossil fuel, design public spaces to harness renewable energy through innovative technologies, and iterate the smart grid to efficiently manage energy distribution and consumption. Also, another fact is the accessible design in the public spaces. We need to incorporate universal design principles to ensure accessibility people of all abilities, including the women, the children, the older peoples, and also all those people with disabilities, to provide lamps, elevators, and other assistive features in public space to ensure proper lighting and signage for the visually impaired. Why the public space? We are going to see the values of public space. Economically, they can raise the property values, beneficial to business, and increase commercial trade by 40%, increase the land value and investment levels support the improvement of the regional economic performance. For the human health, public space can encourage exercise with associated health benefits, can influence a longer life, makes a space for formal or informal sport and games, reduces stress and enhances mental health, improves the health of children by assisting parents and in managing kids who suffer from attention deficit disorder. The socially public spaces provide a venue for social event, lower child mortality by avoiding car-dominated environment. It fosters social and cognitive skills, also foster learning benefits for children, creative play, and reduces absenteeism. It fosters neighboringness and social cohesion, also social and cognitive skills. Environmentally, public spaces have a value of promoting the adoption of environmentally friendly forms of transportation. It enhances air quality, lessen pollution, health islands effects, and the water runoff. They provide opportunities for urban wildlife to thrive, and they promote social interaction, cohesion, and they create social capital. This is the example to illustrate the distribution of those health impact and the feelings all over the world in the public spaces. This is some examples. Why do we need, do we go in, how do we enjoy the public spaces? Some they enjoy by camping in group activities, whereas others do the jogging or praying and so on. In this result, we will have the objectives like assessing the environmental impact resulting from the transition, including changes in biodiversity, ecosystem services, and the conservation practices within the park. Examining the historical context and the evolution of protected areas in Burundi, emphasizing on Ruvubu National Park's unique trajectory, identifying the challenges and opportunities associated with managing Ruvubu National Park as a regional public spaces, considering governance, stakeholders' involvement, and sustainable development. In the methodology, we're going to conduct ecological assessment to measure changes in biodiversity, ecosystem services, and conservation practices within the park, and administering surveys to collect quantitative data on the visitor profiles, satisfactions level, and the perception on transformations. How does data will have impact in our research? We are going to see the integration of the findings. The findings of the study will enrich the knowledge of the protected
sorry
areas.
for interrupting you. Sorry.
Yes.
You have 3 minutes left. You have
Yes,
3
yes,
minutes
yes.
left. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, please.
The findings of the study will enrich the knowledge of protected area and their evolution into regional public spaces. The research will yield the valuable insight on policymakers, conservation practitioners, and local community in Burundi, provide the insight formulating sustainable management strategies, not only for Ruvu, but also for other protected areas. Those are the information about the usage of the park in different activities. Here we have the management of diversity and inclusion stakeholders in managing the public spaces. When we have conducted the survey along the users on the accessibility features, the information to the accessibility, the transformation, where we found that people can't enjoy convenably the park because of those problems of missing of accessibility, transportation options, and others. The expected result a comprehensive understanding of the historical context and the evolution of protected area in Burundi, with a specific focus on Ruvubu National Park, is provided. Environmental impact resulting from the transition, such as changes in biodiversity, ecosystem services, and the conservation practices are identified and assessed. Challenges and opportunities associated with the transformation of protected areas into regional park spaces are advantages, and so on. Here we have the references, as the time is limited. Thank you very much for listening, and I wait for your contribution. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and thanks for the excellent timing as well. Thanks a lot. I'll just have to move quickly to the next one, and then we will have all the questions in the Q&A session. Thank you very much. The next and third speaker is Yanya Aisha Ahsanti. The title of the presentation is Placemaking Under a Flyover, a Utilization of Lost Space as Urban Public Space. She's graduated as the best graduate for her bachelor's in urban and regional planning from Bandung Institute of Technology. Well done. She's a climate change and sustainability consultant in a Big Four company and the founder of Indonesia's placemaking organization called Ruang Ketiga. She's passionate about placemaking and urban sustainability. Yanya, the floor is yours. Please go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Dea, and I'm presenting about my research about placemaking under flyover, utilization of lost space as urban public space in Bandung City, Indonesia. A little bit about myself. As Professor Salim mentioned, that I graduated from Bandung Institute of Technology in urban planning, and I'm currently the founder of a nonprofit organization about placemaking. It's called Ruang Ketiga, or means third place. With the value is to create public place for everyone, and is led by youth. And you can check us on our Instagram. First, our discussion points is the introduction. For the background of my research, the first is that there's a reconstruction of the Pasupati flyover, which connects the Pasteur Road area, which is connected to Jakarta as the capital city of Indonesia, to the Bandung city. And then because of the reconstruction of the flyover, it created a lost space underneath it. And then there's the people around there, they started to make the place turn it into a public space, and also the government has made an official construction of a public space underneath the flyover. In this transformation process, there are characteristics of the space beneath the Pasupati flyover that changes due to various factors such as economic, social, and physical environmental factors. Therefore, the objective of the research is to identify the transformation process resulting from placemaking and lost spaces as residues of the construction of a flyover bridge in the middle of Bandung City. A bit of introduction, I use placemaking as a concept that to identify the transformation of the public space in my research. So a little bit about placemaking. Placemaking changes how cities are planned and designed. Before, the main focus are on buildings and big urban infrastructure and big urban structures. Now the attention is on public space and what people do in them, and it emerged from multiple themes like physical construct, social construct, economic construct, psychological dimension, environment management tool, and also empowerment. And there's natural placemaking and formal placemaking. A natural placemaking is happened when a community creates a collective identity in a place. One of the examples of the natural placemaking is in Dangfeng area in Guangzhou, China. That's known by people as Chocolate City because African immigrants live there, and they make their place for their daily activities. Here are the frameworks that I use in my research. It is from three theories, and they are also implementer of the placemaking. The first is from organization from the US, which is called Project for Public Spaces. And the components of placemaking by PPS is sociability, uses and activities, comfort and image, and access and linkage. And the second one is from Matthew Babiono and Lee, which has 5 components of placemaking, which is people, process, product or project, program, and place evaluation. And the last one is from Village Well, which is from Australia. It has also 5 components of placemaking, which is people, product, program, physical environment, and planet. So next is the methods of the research, the data collection methods, and the analysis methods. So the research type is using qualitative approach with a descriptive research type, and the data collection is using primary data by exploring and interviewing, and also field observations in the public place. Also, secondary data is to obtain an overview of the delineation area. So after I found the 3 theories and frameworks of placemaking, I synthesize it into into 6 components that I use in this research, which is sociability, uses and activities, comfort and image, accessibility, process, and place evaluation. And for the results, there are 4 parts, and I will tell you. The first one is the public place development process of each period. As you can see in the pictures, this is before and after the Taman Film or Film Park is built underneath the flyover. In the period of 2005 to 2009, the Pasupati flyover officially commenced operation, and the lost spaces were created beneath the Pasupati flyover, and empty spaces filled with construction debris and makeshift shelters for the homeless. And there are also criminal activities such as drug trafficking become rampant. In the next period, which is in 2010 to 2014, a mall called Malubur Town Square, which is right next to the Pasupati flyover, become the new economic center of the Taman Sari district in Bandung in 2010. And because of this baltos of this shopping area, it brings street vendors to trade in under Pasupati flyover. And then Bandung Mayor, in the period of 2013 to 2018 campaign, is to increase the level of happiness in the community by creating and revitalizing public space. So when he was elected to become the mayor, he have a program which is called thematic park program, and so the film park construction began. In the next period, which is in 2015 to 2019, fierce activities are carried out in Taman Film or in Film Park, and there are many government-sponsored collective watching events are frequently held. And in 2016, the Film Park was regularly utilized by various communities. But at the end of 2019, a conflict arose in Taman Sari Public Apartment located right next to this park, affecting the activities in the film park. And for the last period, which is from 2020 until now. So this period marked by the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus, which affected the film park. So there were no activities at that time. And the main facility of the film park, which is also the main attraction, is a monitor screen was damaged due to non-use and filled with animals. And the recovery from COVID-19 in the last quarter of 2021 also restored activities in the film park, and daily activities were resumed. So this is a timeline. If you can see, the changes happened between the period of each period, and I felt with day activity, night activity, communities perception, and communities collective action. And as you can see, the changes in each period. So the results of my research, the development process based on placemaking frameworks is the first one. The first component is sociability, where the components means that the community feels comfortable interacting and a sense of ownership towards a place arises, and also the community shares a common goal to collectively participate in improving the place. What I found is initially the community was not comfortable interacting in that space. Local residents felt uneasy, prompting some concerned residents to initiate improvements. So in September 2014, the film park was officially open for public, providing the community with a new comfortable public space for interaction. Now, some residents, especially children, have made the film park their favorite place to play. And the next components is uses and activities. The components means that various functions of activities are available, ranging from daily events to occasional celebrations. And the diversity of functions and activities can be observed both during the day and at night. What I found is that at the beginning of the Pasupati's flyover's official opening, there were no activities beneath the flyover. Moments later, negative activities filled the space. So the official opening of the film park provided a venue for the community to engage in various activities such as gathering, playing, eating together, etc. And the main activity, which also attracts the most crowds, is watching Persip, or a soccer game of Bandung City matches together there. And during the pandemic, there were no activities for a while. However, as things started to improve, the activities resumed. Celebrations events are also frequently held. But there are still negative activities such as drunkenness are still found during the night. For the next component, which is comfort and image, it means that image feelings of comfort and a positive image to that place is and connecting the community's experience and the formation of stories or an image of a place. The findings are the image of the space under the flyover was negative, being perceived as a slum and frightening for people. And the presence, and then the presence of Baltos Mall transformed the image of the space beneath the Pasupati flyover into a new economic activity center. The film park, or Taman Film, was officially used by residents in September 2014. The image of the film park became an icon of Taman Sari and a center of activity. Next is the collective watching of Persib, the Bandung soccer team matches, often held in the film park, has created the image of the film park as a place for watching Persib matches together. Now, the image of the film park is as a gathering places. The next one is accessibility. The next one is
Excuse me, 3 minutes
Yeah?
left. 3 minutes left.
3 minutes. Okay, thank you. It means that a place with quick access and connected to its surrounding environment, and the built environment conditions of the study area and its surroundings. The findings are alongside the construction of the Pasupati flyover, a new road was built. And then the existing public road seems to be owned by Baltos or the mall. And then access to the space beneath the Pasupati flyover is through the two aforementioned routes, and there have been no additions. There's no public transportation access to the space, and there the parking spaces are taken over by some travel agencies. The process of and then the next component is process. The findings are the planning process for the film park involved limited community engagement. However, the committee welcomed the construction of the film park as a positive development. And then the place evaluation component is that the value of public place as an accessible area for everyone still applies, but the main attraction is no longer functional, so it decreased the interest from the public. Then the cleanliness is not well maintained, and then the security at night is lacking. So there are a few characteristics of each period. There's also reasons why it's called placemaking or not, and the reasons of the characteristic change. The first reason of characteristic change is some members of the community already have a member of sense of ownership over the space, so it's called place. And then the next one is there have been significant physical changes resulting in significant changes in the level of security, comfort, and positive image as well. So the next one is the situation are not safe and comfortable for people to engage in activities in the film park. There's also some positive and negative interceptor that may or may not the placemaking to happen. The conclusion or the research findings are, the first one is the process of placemaking in the space beneath the Pasupati flower is a phenomenon of utilizing lost space as a means of public space. This space, which was originally an empty area used informally by the community, especially for negative activities, making it difficult to be called placemaking. Then, with government intervention in the form of policies, the space beneath the flyover was designated for city infrastructure development of formal public space. The second findings are, before being designated as a city park, some concerned citizens has already made improvements, indicating that informal placemaking has occurred. Furthermore, the process of designating the space beneath the Pasupati flyover as a city park and a part of Bandung's public space is a form of formal placemaking or placemaking that occurs by design. Community involvement in this placemaking process is minimal, both in policy setting, planning, construction, and management stages. And the third finding is the characteristics of the space form in this location are caused by significant moments or events that influence the placemaking process. This results in the periodization of the stages of placemaking development. Then there are positive and negative interceptors for placemaking in the space beneath the Pasupati flyover. These factors vary in each period. Positive interceptors are actions or events that trigger placemaking, such as emergence of collecting watching activities, film community discussion, martial arts training, and so on. And negative interceptors are actions or events that hinder placemaking, such as the proliferation of drug transaction as a place for NFL fights, as a place for homeless people to live. There are the recommendations for future studies. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Excellent. Thank you very much, Diamira, for the interesting presentation. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. I like the way you're structuring your research and presenting your findings and developing frameworks. So I think it's going to be very useful for a lot of our attendees today, but thanks a lot. Our fourth speaker is Canniffe, is an associate professor of the School of Architecture. He received the PhD at the School of Architecture at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and his research interests lie in the community participatory design, heritage conservation, aging-friendly design, and spatial anthropology. The title of the talk is a preliminary study of the elderly's activity in the park based on the observation and continuous photography. Thanks a lot for attending today. Yeah, and please share your screen.
Okay, at first, thanks very much for Professor Gahem Salim and Dr. Yanya's organization of this seminar, and it's very pleasure to be here. I'm Canniffe from School of Architecture, Tianjin University. I will start my presentation from the aging issue because population aging has become a worldwide challenge and hot topic. And here, aging refers to the people aged 60 years. And Chinese cities has faced serious double aging issues. One is in the dimension of material environment, and another is at the perspective of social environment. And we can also see that aging issue has become an important part of the environment, behavior, and community studies. And urban green space has been understood as a key element of the residents' health, and its main users are the elderly. And this has been certified with our observation. And some paper has argued that the temperature is very important to the elderly's activity in the public space. However, we find that there is a lack of research on how the spatial factors influence the elderly's public life in the cold weather. And I have some we have some talk on the WeChat with Dr. Tan, and Dr. Tan has told me that there is some difference between the public life and public space between the Western country cities and the Chinese cities. Tan told me that in the Western countries, such as the UK, the government may arrange some activities on the urban parks. But in China, many activities are spontaneous among the people in Chinese public space, such as the parks. And I think that this has made the spatial factors obvious to influence the elderly's activities in the urban parks in Chinese cities. And our research question is how and what spatial factors can influence the activity of the elderly in the cold weather in the context of public life of Chinese cities. And I think there may be two social dimensions of public space creation and design. And one is about the social measurement. It is more linked with spatial data. And another dimension is multi-stakeholders co-construction. It is more linked with community participation. And our research is more focusing on the spatial measurement. And I will start from that, from the observation of sometimes we have urban public space, but it isn't equal to that we have the public life on the space. And Yanya has said that the people data is a basis for a new discussion of the future of the city. So we need to know more about the data of public life of people to improve our strategy and give recommendation for the improvement of the environment. And some sociologists, such as William White, has begun to explore how to observe the public life. For example, in his book, The Social Life of a Small Urban Space, he has proposed some methodology to observe the life on the square. And in 2013, Yanya has published a book, How to Study the Public Life. And he has proposed several questions about the public life, and also propose a more complete research methodology to study the public life on the space. And with the development of information technology, we can have more advanced observation methods to observe the public life on the space with some long distance methods. And then maybe we can go from observation to the immersion to know more about the translation of public life and to explore the context of the life and the perceived emotion and the motivation of the people, and to get more rich and meaningful details. And so we can go from just observation of the space to entering the scenery to know more of the context, the process, and the detail of the public life. And in 2018, Cecilo has proposed a 7-step toolkit for the ethnographical study of space. After a review of these methodologies, we came back to our study. At first, I want to declare it is not a complete result of the study, but a long process of experimentation. At first, we go to some small parts of the old residential neighborhood in Tianjin. Tianjin is also the city where our university is located in. But we find that there is nearly no people here, and the small parks are very empty. But when we go to the urban park, we are amazing to find that there are a lot of elderly people activity here. And we have choose 3 different parks in one district, but these 3 parks in 3 different scales. It is in small, medium, and large scales. And our observation study is to take continuous photos when wandering in the park space, and its time is from 20 to 27 January 2024. And we need to say that January 20th is a severely cold day in Chinese traditional calendar. It's Dahanri. And our research frequency is nearly every day from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And how we judge whether one is an elderly people is based on their appearance, their activity posture, and what one wears. And our research outcome are thousands of photos and some mappings to show the location where the elderly is doing some activity. And here, maybe I can show some of the photos. We are dividing the activity into three types. One is in recreation. You can see some elderlies were singing picking apple, and some are doing the square dancing, and others were playing chess. And the second type is in physical activity. Some were with facilities, and some were kicking shuttlecock, and others were playing tennis. And the third type is the elderly in rest. Some were relaxing, and others were getting on the chair. And there are also some elderly chatting here. Besides the elderly in the center of the park, we also find some activity in the park space corner, for example, near the edge of the park. And we see that some elderlies were performing a square dance, and some were doing the square dancing. And we have got some preliminary hypotheses of the elderly's activities. At first, some elderly's activities have some regularity early. This is from our carol talk with the elderly, but we also see that their activity very quickly in different times. And the second observation is that we find that sunshine is a very strong influence on the elderly's activity, especially when we see this, the shadow shed by these very big high-rise buildings. We can see that the shadow has divided the space into two different parts. On the left part, there are a lot of elderly here, but on the right part, there is nearly no people. And we also observe that the facilities are very important to the elderly because we find that some elderly would like to put their clothes or some other things on this facility. So they are supposed to be very important. And we also find some informal usage of the facilities. For example, some elderlies would like to put their clothes on the net of this tennis court. And then the recreation activities such as playing cards often happen back the wall of this architecture. And then we also find that different activities and types of gathering may happen in one square. And finally, we observe that activity in the afternoon accompanied with those of the children. And this is very different from the activity in the morning. And then we zoom into the Park B, the medium scale of the park, and put the location of the activity into the mapping, and got a lot of mapping every hour. And we can see how this activity was distributed in the park. And we also observed the frequency of the elderly passing through the main paths, and we find that at 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. there are most elderly passing through the paths and the main paths, and in the afternoon and in the morning and afternoon. And then we continue to set up a correlation between the activity and the space. And here the process is that at first we do a lot of spatial analysis with spatial syntax via DeskMap, and the social analysis via Tangent, and calculate other social factors, and put all the data, including the spatial factors and the elderly's activity, into G system. And then we analyze the correlation between the activities and the spatial factors via SPSS. It is a very traditional statistic method. And we have divided the park space into 23 zones based on the location of the elderly's activity. And so we get 23 samples for the statistic analysis. And I feel very sorry because some of our research result, the diagram is under review in my journal, but I can show you some of our preliminary conclusions. At first, our research find that some factors of the spatial syntax has the most important influence on the elderly's activity. And second, we find that the shadow has an obvious relation with elderly's activities location in the square space. And third is that we find that other spatial factors such as the closest distance to the main entrance and the green space ratio.
Sorry for interrupt you. 3 minutes left.
Okay, I will go through very quickly. Yeah. And green visual ratio don't have a very strong influence on the activity. And we think that this may also help us contribute to our understanding of public life in Chinese cities. And finally, I can also show you some of our future research direction. One is that we will, because we just studied the park in the medium scale, we will also continue to study continue to do this correlation analysis for the park in the small and the large scale. And we'll also show study how the social relation of the elderly form and promoted in the park space, and continue to study how temperature influences the activity. For example, we can do a comparison with that in summer. And third part is we will use some digital technology such as eye tracking and virtual reality to study what spatial facilities may attract elderly's attention in the park, especially for the signal system. Here is some experimentation we have done in some days ago. And here is the reference of my study. And thanks very much for listening. And also thanks to our team member Wang Yaxin and the kind suggestion of Wu Fangning from Chinese University of Hong Kong. And we'll be very happy to have more discussion and hear your comments and feedback on my research. Thank you very much.
Indeed, thank you very much for the presentation. Very exciting research has been done, and I think the empirical work as well is very interesting. And I think we would like to have a discussion about that, maybe probably after the seminar. But thanks a lot for the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Moving to our last and final speaker in the first track, Assam Azzuddin, on the title of Urban Public Spaces, Vibrance and Fostering Social Life. Assam is a Dubai-based architect and urban planner with more than 39 years of diverse experience in the Middle East and GCC region. He is an active lead in the design of many prestigious landmark buildings in Dubai. He has been the project director and principal design architect with top-ranked consultancy firms in UAE since 1991. Assam, the floor is yours. Please share your screen with us.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody, because you're in UK and we are in the Middle East. So I can say good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for approaching me. Can you hear me very well? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can. Can you please share your screen?
In fact, this presentation will not be similar to the previous presentation because I'm going to focus on my experience. It's not going to be very theoretical. It's going to be on the experience I had in Dubai, because the great point here now that we have presented something in UK and in the Far East, in China, but now we're going to talk about Dubai as a case study. You know, everybody know that the world population is really growing sharply, and which is a big challenge to everybody. What does that mean? That means that the rural places are shrinking and the development of cities and towns are growing. And that means public spaces are shrinking as well. Due to the greediness of developers and the plots or land owners where they need to utilize their lands. That's why they need to get to the maximum leasable areas or developed areas for the commercial point of view for the site. That's why there's a big challenge now. The population is raising, the rural places are shrinking, which is a big challenge to the public spaces and the outdoors in principle. And if you look at the diagram here, you will be seeing that the rural, the blue one is really shrinking, and the red color, which is the urban population, is shooting up, which is a threat to the public spaces. As we know, most of people, or 95% of people, are moving from the rural places to the civilized or developed places to find our jobs or to live in cities, moving to universities and moving to schools. That's why 95% of us, we are living in indoor areas, and we are lacking lots of outdoors area within the same premises or within the town or city. In fact, this was extracted, the presentation, it was extracted from my PhD research dissertation, which took me 4 years part-time in Heriot-Watt University, and it's already now published. You can Google it and have many articles from it or chapters. If you also need to go through it, it's accessible. How can we, the point is now, and the challenge is, we as a decision maker or architects, urban planners, authorities, officials, how can planning and urban design policies be formulated in our design? We are not going to talk only theories here. We're not going to talk about researches. We need now to take a step forward in having influence on the authorities and try to put some codes and mandating having public spaces in our regulations and codes, and not limit these things only to theories and researches. So that was the main objective of my research, is to approach and connect with the authorities and the decision makers and regulate the public space as an important urban element in our design. Plus, we need to connect architects and urban planner. Architect cannot work separately away from the urban planner, and vice versa. The urban planner should merge his design into the architectural and the planning of any building, and not to have this kind of segregation that the architect will come after the urban planner or the urban planner will come after the architect. No, they should work together. As we know, the mechanism of urbanization has 5 components, which is very important. The law, when we talk about the law, is the regulations and codes, and the governments, the science, where we have the technology and the invention, where to integrate that into the architecture or the urban planning or the public spaces, the economy, and its impact also in our urban planning studies, the society. These 5 components all is the main components to formulate the urbanization. What are the gaps? There are lots of gaps. I'm giving now here the UAE or the Dubai case study. The UAE developed communities for the last 2 decades, and we're going to see some slides on that. They are all lacking the livable open spaces. There are no design guidelines that mandate integrating urban public spaces in the master planning of communities or cities. An empirical design process has not been established by urban planner for creating public spaces and as focal and social gathering zones. Also, there is no defined urban planning policy to encourage developers to understand the significance of public squares in the community. Unfortunately, developers, when they deal with architects or designers, they look after the money and they want to maximize the leasable and rentable area to get money. If you're going to talk to them about any spaces to entertain tenants or people, they said, no, I don't want to waste the area by giving unprofitable area for them. So that's called the greediness in the developers and the attitude of their development, which really ruining and having impact on the architects as well, influencing the architects to come up with his creativity. So we need in this presentation to focus on the neglected public spaces in the urban and city planning. Unfortunately, most of the Middle East cities mainly architect and urban planner, whenever they design a city or a town, the leftover spaces, they do it public spaces, which is wrong. It should be integrated on the design from day one. And I think the public space needs to be the focal point. Then we, as an architect, we need to work around these public spaces and not to consider public spaces as a leftover place where we can put some greenery and benches and then we call it public space. Also, I personally need to have a correction in the definition of public spaces. When I talk about public spaces, it means integrating the persons, the people in this space. So any space having a crossing of vehicles or traffic, I don't personally consider it public space. We can consider it commercial square. We can consider it vehicle moved transportation square, yes, but it's not public for people. That's why I prefer to correct the definition of public spaces, because we can see in the researchers talking about cars, about traffic, about parking area or park where you have a non-safety issue on that, which is, I believe it's very important, or primary things is to have the safety in this place. So mainly we need to know, to make sure that the planning and authority, local municipality role is to implement policies and codes and regulations in the guidelines books for the architects and urban planner to consider. Also to plan potentials of the built environment for town squares and establish these spaces and make sure that it's sustainable and to facilitate all the social interaction in these places. Very important to integrate these spaces between the buildings themselves and make sure that it's in a safe movement away from any transportation. Those are the historical squares, and I think Europe is famous in the squares itself. I'm just gonna go through a few of them here. We'll talk about Dubai. Look at this map, Dubai 1986, and suddenly you see the red spot, move quickly to 2018. That was the time I completed my PhD. Look at this, the huge extension of Dubai, of this urban planning in Dubai. And you can see the green, it used to be in 1970, and then all the red color is the development between urban, between 2000 and 2015. The red spots are all developed in 5 years. And unfortunately, if you look at the blue square, you will find that in the whole developments, there are only 3 public squares in Dubai. Or maybe it used to be two, and then they created the 3rd one in Dubai City Walk. So that was the point which encouraged me to do my research on public squares. One of the case studies I took, there are 3 buildings with a square in the middle, which is related to Amar Square, and these 3 buildings are offices. In my analysis and the survey, we find that if any tenant will leave any office space, you need to take a queue of 2 to 3 years to rent this place. And when I did the study, why this place has a demand, a huge demand, we found that due to the plaza, due to the squares between the 3 buildings, the tenants are not leaving and they are not vacating the place. And from here, we know the importance of the square or the public area within the business environment. Also, I did a study. I made this chart layout and met lots of officials and people, decision makers, architects. I made 4 options of buildings. The black one is buildings, and the green is the squares, the outdoors. And I found that option 3 is the more likable, which took like 70% of people preferring this option. In fact, it's due to the central square between these buildings. And then the survey really was having it. The more better open spaces you have, the more demand to these premises or areas to be rented or utilized. Also, another research I made for these complex.
Sorry for interrupting you. 3 minutes left.
Oh yeah, okay. So I did 2 case studies. This is the integration of different public spaces and open spaces within a huge complex of 5 towers. I'm gonna go for this one. It's a resort which was built. The first design was done without any entertainment activities, which was greenery like that. Then the developer was complaining that he cannot lease or cannot sell these units. Then suddenly I decided to redesign it for him, where I have a swimming pool, an entertainment area with gymnasium and all places for interaction. Then suddenly we found that the building was sold quickly. And the last thing, we shouldn't ignore the high rise. Even in the high rise, we have to find out some places for tenants to gather. That's why this is one of the tower I designed, where I created pockets in the tower itself. And these pockets are open spaces for the tenant to gather and socialize. Conclusion, people want their buildings or neighborhoods to foster positive social interactions, to have both a sense of community and social support. And children as well needs access to play spaces, and other elderly, as my previous presenter who talked about the elderly as well in the public spaces, which is very important. And don't forget that community exists only when people know each other. And for me, public space is like a living room in a flat. If you don't have living room in your flat, you don't have a livable space. So open space is similar for the city and town and towns. Thank you very much. Sorry, I have to rush my presentation.
No, this is absolutely fine. And thank you very much for sticking for the time and the interesting presentation. And I think it's really useful that we are in this session. What is really interesting, we're looking at different contexts, geographical context. So I think the learning and the knowledge behind each case is different, valuable and inspirable as well. And this is, I think, why we have a lot of questions in the chat box. So I will try to go and jump into that quickly to harvest them so we can have enough time for discussion. But thank you very much for the presentation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'll just jump directly and move directly to the Q&A session. But first of all, thank you so much for all the 5 speakers. I think we have questions for everybody. So I'll try to go through them, at least one question for every speaker, and then I will go for another cycle. I think the first question from Jackie. Jackie, would you like to ask the question verbally, or because you're here already? You have a question to Eamonn.
Oh, yes.
About skateboard activities in public spaces. So yeah, please go ahead.
Is it he's here or?
I think he said he's here. Did he leave?
I didn't see him. We can move to other presenters now.
Right. Okay. And then the next question is for Eamonn as well. But the following one is for Anishat from Dano. Would you like to ask the question yourself, Dano? You're here.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Hello, Nishat.
Yes.
Yeah. I already dropped my question in the question box, but I read it one more time, and especially regarding the main challenges in how do you think to the challenges to transform Ruvubu National Park in Burundi, which is protected, into public space? What lesson learned can we get from your opinion, your research? Thank you.
Yes.
Anishat.
Thank you very much. As Ruvubu National Park is located in a rural area, and it has natural and cultural significance. Before, in its historic, it was not a public space. Now to transform it from natural significance to public space, we have to combine both uses. In that case, there is the challenge of balancing the conservation efforts and the public access. Secondly, to manage the conflict between the wildlife and the human activities, because as the movement is increasing, it will enhance the disturbance of the wildlife in the park. Third, we need to think about securing of the funds. Burundi is the country among developing countries and the poor countries, which is faced to the poorness. We need to have the funds to support the infrastructure development in the national park. And also, we have to ensure that we are planning the sustainable tourism practices, which will involve all stakeholders. Also, we have the challenge of the planning. Most of developing countries are facing to planning in the public spaces. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Right, moving to the next question. I'm sorry I cannot pick up the name because it appears to me in Chinese, but it's a question to Mai. Thanks a lot for sharing such a valuable research. Is there any plan for designing a female-friendly street, for example? Really looking forward to a future design research on female-friendly spaces. Oh, that's a dream. That is a dream.
Yeah, so the expected outcome of these projects is a policy document for Leeds City Council as for design recommendations for community safety. So this will be part as an appendix for women's safety in public open spaces design.
Can I elaborate on that, please, as well?
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
Having these days this technology and the cipher and the cameras and all this technology, this is a very important tool and support to install them in the public open spaces. So I think this is a very important tool to secure the safety for the women and to avoid any kind of harassment. And anybody who's trying to make this harassment intentionally, once he knows that there are cameras around it or there are some sensors or digital things, observing, I think she's going to be on a safe side. So I think technology will play a huge role now in the urban planning for these spaces.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
But we cannot have pink paths for them, that nobody is allowed to walk through.
Before going back to the questions in the chat box, because we have another question for I think we have a hand raised here. So can please you open your camera, introduce yourself and ask the question, please.
Yes, thank you so much for all the speakers for your amazing speech. And I have a question for Dr. Fei Chen, and thank you so much for your amazing research. I wonder whether any differences between the northern city and the southern city in China of their elderly people do in the public space, because as my living experience in China, the temperature and the sunshine situation in winter is totally different in different parts of China. Thank you.
Yeah. At first, thank you very much for your question. I think what we are saying is very true, because I have just started to study how the spatial factors can influence the activity from January. So it is nearly only 1 or 2 months. And maybe we can continue to explore how the temperature in the southern China can influence the elderly activity in the parks, because because as we all know that in China the southern cities and the northern cities, the temperature and the shadow are totally very different. And in the southern China, For example, in Guangzhou and in Fujian province, the temperature is maybe 2 to 20 degree higher than the city in the northern China. So I think there will be a lot of more work to explore how to set up link between the spatial factor and the elderly activity in these different parts of these different cities. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for your question. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Any other questions from the floor before we go back to the chat box? No, okay, I can't see any hands up, so we'll go back to the chat box for another more question from Rosfina to Mai as well. Thanks a lot, very insightful research and nice data presentation. You mentioned about external and internal factors of safety, how to integrate the two to public space design, since the internal factors are subjective.
Thanks, Rosfina, for your question. I think part of the discussion that I've been mentioning, the percentages of women that have been facing violence and sexual harassment in public space. So there are consensus in terms of the experiences and perception of safety, and goes back and reflects to the paradox of women's fear of public spaces. So there is an issue regarding the perception of safety and security from women's perspective that we need to take into consideration while we are doing or thinking about design of public open spaces. So this is the part. So though it is subjective, but yet there are consensus among different participants. So there are things in common that we can actually articulate in our design process. And that's why, again, sharing experiences of different users and perspectives into the decision-making process increase the awareness of the magnitude of this issue as well. I hope I answered your question.
We can have extra discussions in 412, no problem. Right. Last question from Riza as well. Riza, would you like to ask the question directly? You're here. Let's hear.
Thank you very much, Professor Jihan, and thank you very much, Dr. May, for insightful research and presentations. I'm really curious about the first page of your presentation that shown us about the hierarchical dualities. As you also now mention about the urban design or urban designer or urban planner. So which one should urban planner or designer prioritize in integrating the perspective and the needs of women into the design of public spaces in terms of creating a more inclusive and safe environments? As you your design, your research is focused in Leeds, that we already know there's a lot of unsafe places, not only for women but also for men. And I live near to the Hyde Parks that give us many scary news about using the park as well as urban space or open space term. So how do you think about it?
Thank you, Riza, for this. I think the issue here when we're talking about the duality, that it is either that you take into consideration planners or practitioners into the decision-making process, and neglecting a big factor of this, which are the community or the users of those spaces. But in fact, it is how to create this balance between practitioners, communities' perception, to be integrated all in one framework that is considering and integrating, articulating women's safety and security in public spaces. So you cannot ignore the knowledge, the experience, but again, you cannot ignore the experience that has been shared by the participants as well. And that's why, from the feminist perspective, that they were trying to actually highlighting those questions, that it is not about having this or that, it is about creating this kind of balance when we are thinking of inclusive public open spaces that is satisfactory for all users.
Thank you very much for the answer.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks a
welcome.
lot. Any other questions? Any more questions? Right. If not, so I would like to wrap up here the first session for the seminar today and thank all our 5 speakers. Really valuable, insightful, informative discussions today. And I think I reflect once again, I'm really interested about the variety of geographical context, the different case studies we've been looking at. And I think we need more time to raise questions and have more discussions. But we are limited with the time of the seminar. So I will not hold you from the lunch break anymore because we're already behind. A question for Essam. Okay, so we have one question. Very interesting design project, but how to make sure each design of public space can achieve to the goal of really can solve the social problem? Is there any design criteria? Because you mentioned that there's a lack of policy or something like that. If Essam, can you answer in a couple of minutes, please?
Yeah. See, the point is in the codes or the regulation, design guideline regulations here in Dubai. Let me take the case in Dubai, and I think Dubai is the most developed and civilized place now in the Middle East, even though they are lacking to give or to mandate the open spaces and the plazas or the squares within the urban planning. It's not mandatory. So I think there should be criteria and kind of measurements for the urban planner when he's start designing the town or the community, is to give kind of percentage of public space or square or plaza within this community. Because in all means, you cannot build 100%, or the footprint of the building cannot be 100%. You still have 25% of streets and paths, and you still have another 10 to 15% in the urban planning studies, as we know, the greenery area. Here they added like a greenery area, but I think greenery area is the leftover of the function we need. The footprint of the buildings and the accessibilities to the building, plus parking and roads, driveways. So whatever is left is considered landscaping, which is completely wrong. I think there must be a mandatory requirements from the authorities to tell the urban planner or the architect, you have to have at least 10 to 15% of the plot of the land a square or a gathering place where all the tenants or the residents to gather there or to interact there. And this design should be also integrated in the architect's concept design from day one. So it's not like a regulation that it's opted to the architect to have it or no, it should be mandated.
If we can resume back in 10 minutes, like 12:45 UK time in 10 minutes, that would be really great and appreciated. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. See you very soon again. Hi, everyone. So we're back.
Yeah. Sorry for a bit delay for the morning section. Now we move to the track 2 section. We have other speakers who are more focused on the engagement between different generations. Intergenerational cohesion is an important focus point closely related to the development of human society and many future cohorts. The demographic group that our speaker focuses on will symbolize some of the future of the future. Now, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Sarah, for the beginning of the track 2 session. Sarah Whitney is a first-year PhD student at Heriot-Watt University conducting research on intergenerational practice. She is presenting as a volunteer of the Citadel, a young center situated in Leeds, Edinburgh, that develops and delivers intergenerational programs to bring younger and older people in the community together in mutually beneficial activities. So let's welcome Sarah. Sarah, are you here?
Hi, sorry, just trying to get my slides all sorted for you. I am here. Thank you so much for having me today. There we go. So hello, good morning, and thank you for inviting me to present today. My name is Sarah Sweeney. I'm a first-year PhD student at Heriot-Watt University, looking to conduct research into intergenerational community hubs. I volunteer at the Citadel Youth Centre in one of their intergenerational programmes, the New Spin Intergenerational Cafe, and I've been connecting with the Citadel, learning about their intergenerational work for the past 4 months now. I'm looking to include the Citadel as a case study community organisation in my research. I am presenting on behalf of Ryan McKay, who is the lead intergenerational worker at the Citadel. There's a lot more that Citadel does outside of intergenerational work, and I will include contact details for anybody looking to get in touch at the end of the presentation. So today I'll be talking about the Citadel's background and journey in planning, delivering and evaluating intergenerational projects and programmes, and about specific examples of programmes that have been delivered in their local community. I'll be discussing what the intergenerational practitioners' insights are into what make these programmes so successful for the participants, and how the individual benefits to participants flow into the wider community, as well as discussing some of the challenges to consider when planning and delivering intergenerational practice. My presentation will focus more on the practical operations of the Citadel as an intergenerational community hub. Ryan McKay, the lead intergenerational practitioner at the Citadel, has a background in community education, school-based youth work, and intergenerational practice. More recently, he's been involved in digital approaches to intergenerational practice, which I will talk more about in this presentation. There are 3 key parts to his role at the Citadel: working as a school-based youth worker, youth participation in his youth work programme, and youth-led intergenerational practice. So some history and background. The Citadel was established in 1980 in Leeds and was primarily set up as a youth centre. However, over the past 8 years, they've made the transition to a community centre where they support a diverse range of people within the community, including mums, toddlers, young people, children, and older adults. Some of the clubs that are currently running at the Citadel include a senior club, junior support group, a mental health and wellbeing group, and a games club. The Citadel is a good example of the feasibility of balancing intergenerational practice with existing groups and projects within community centres. The Citadel views their wide range of functioning groups as a contributing factor to the intergenerational interaction at the centre, as participants of the programmes have experience of being around each other, which normalises different generations meeting informally. The Citadel has one ongoing intergenerational group, the New Spin Intergenerational Cafe, which is the centre's longest running club. Alongside New Spin, the Citadel had a long-running project called Old School, which ran from 2015 to 2022. The Citadel has a specific approach to intergenerational practice, which has been developed over the years. This unique approach combines the fundamental features of intergenerational practice that's commonly discussed in academic literature with youth work principles, which I will discuss on the next slide. To ensure that IP, so intergenerational practice, intergenerational programs are intergenerational as opposed to simply multi-generational, the Citadel brings together younger and older people in a meaningful way, and not just having these 2 groups in the same place. The activities are structured around and focused on intergenerational learning, sharing skills and values between generations, and always ensuring that there is a mutual benefit to the activities, which is key to intergenerational practice. The Citadel recognises the importance of providing adequate support that allows each participant to engage fully in the activities and get the most out of them. This means providing intentional and carefully considered support for additional needs. This could include tailoring certain aspects of the activities to hearing and sight issues, providing additional support for a wide range of neurodivergence amongst the participants of the programmes, for example, ADHD, dyslexia, autistic spectrum disorder, and dyspraxia. Some participants may struggle with literacy. The Citadel intentionally ensures the accessibility of the session by providing activities that support a wide range of skill and diversity. For example, if word search activities are part of the session, there will always be maze tasks alongside this. These tasks are also completely optional. The programmes are always prepared with a support structure in place for the specific participants attending. Intergenerational programmes are not a one-size-fits-all approach. And lastly, one of the biggest ways to support IP is by simply facilitating and providing the space and resources to make it possible. The Citadel model for intergenerational practice follows a youth work-led approach and is centred in the belief that effective youth work is the foundation upon which successful intergenerational programmes are built on. The 3 guiding principles of youth work are voluntary participation by the young people, building from where the young people are, and recognising the young person and the youth worker as in a learning partnership. Youth work and youth-led IP at the Citadel focuses on developing oracy skills by focusing on drama, debating, and presentation. The progress of young people is actively monitored. Their needs and where they're at can evolve, which can sometimes mean moving to an alternative club that may be a better fit as they develop new skills and grow older. The Citadel focuses on building the confidence of the young people to lead the direction of the sessions, with the older adults powering the back wheels as mentors. Conversations between volunteers and young people often present ideas for new projects, which allows the sessions to be co-designed and reflective of the young people's interests. For example, a young person expressed an interest in fashion and robotics. Since then, a session for the use of soft robotics in clothing, which causes the designs to light up, has been in development. The New Spin Intergenerational Cafe is the Citadel's longest running club and is delivered alongside the Citadel's partners, the Pulmeni Development Project. They're a vital part of the programme as they enable the participation of older adults, as well as bringing their expertise of working with and supporting older adults. The partnership and club were developed to address a lack of safety felt by the older adults in the community of Leeds, to address age-based stigma, and to bring generations closer together. Both organisations recognised that by entering a partnership and delivering intergenerational practice, that there was an opportunity to bring two generations together who did not previously have enough exposure to each other. The programme has been built up slowly over time, coinciding with a sense of cohesion in the community. For the Citadel, intergenerational practice has always been second nature. However, the formality that comes with the programme allows established work to place where benefits and the effects on the community can be evaluated. For each week, the Friday session runs from 1 to 2:30 p.m, with volunteers arriving to set up and take part in a session brief prior to the start of the programme. The programme is semi-structured with a planned activity following a new theme every week. There are typically 15 older and young people together with a deliberate setup of multi-generational tables, including the volunteers. There's always food and beverages available throughout the session, often reflecting the week's theme. The Citadel have identified the act of eating food or simply drinking a cup of tea communally as a great leveler and icebreaker. It breaks down that initial invisible wall between participants and is a great way for participants to become comfortable before the activities begin. We dedicated a session to celebrate Chinese New Year. The activities included identifying each participant's year of birth and corresponding zodiac animal, and the chopstick game, which involved learning the skill of using chopsticks by transferring pieces of dried pasta from one cup to another in teams. Both activities correlated with key themes such as intergenerational teamwork, learning of new skills. The older adults were teaching the young people how to use chopsticks. They may not have used them before. And we also were able to eat some Chinese food such as spring rolls and stir fry, which some of the younger people hadn't tried before either. The Old School Intergenerational Project was launched in 2015. The main approach initially was to work with 4 local schools. However, over time, the reach of the project has extended to the wider community, with the focus being on facilitating young people to deliver intergenerational activities to older adults. The project is very focused on a shared interest between the generations of the arts and media, and every activity is planned to promote creativity. The project was funded by the Big Lottery and the Paul Hamlin Foundation. The programmes involved a wide range of young people. They could be aged between 12 to 18, and activities have been delivered for both single and mixed gender groups, which in turn has allowed the Citadel to support a wide range of older people. Some examples of outcomes of the programme include photography, film, woodwork, working with clay, coding, and even CAD design workshops where older and young people design their dream houses together. Most of the activities are designed to challenge age-based stereotypes. For example, one activity involves spray painting a mural in an enterprise sculpture workshop. A lot of the participants were women in their 80s, with one being in her 90s, and all thoroughly enjoyed participating in the workshop. The Old School project ran from 2015 to 2022 with a gap in the middle. This was due to negotiating funding in the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the project is a good example of being able to keep the momentum going by evidencing impact during a break, as there were many opportunities to promote the toolkit and present the outcomes of the programme. The Old School programme was built on the following aim and objectives: to train and support young people at risk of disengaging from school, to facilitate intergenerational activity with older people, and to present a record of their work to the wider community. The first objective being to develop the communication skills and confidence of the young people. Objective 2, to improve the level of understanding between older and younger people in Leeds. And objective 3, to evidence the potential value of youth work in general and intergenerational practice in particular for delivering the educational outcomes of the curriculum for excellence. On this slide, I've included some photographs of activities from Old School, as well as some quotes from the participants of the programme. One older person said that before Old School, I was often lonely. Coming and meeting the kids each week has given me a new lease of life. A young person said that meeting the older people and trying new things has made me more confident. I now speak out so much more in class. And an older person has said, young people don't get the credit they deserve. Those I met at Old School were the highlight of my week. Here is a list of some of the outputs of the Old School programme. One output was the Top Trumps card, created to learn about local history, heritage and culture. This project was a good example of mutual learning and knowledge transfer. The older adults brought their expertise with local heritage, and the young people used their digital skills to create the cards. The project also led to an award for the older adults' contribution of knowledge to the project. So I actually have the cards here today, and they basically will have some kind of picture on them with some historical facts. And so the kids were in charge of creating the cards with their digital skills, and the older adults brought their sort of knowledge and expertise. So it's teamwork. And there was an award for the older adults' contribution of knowledge to the project, which was amazing. And then some other intergenerational projects that I'll just kind of skim over. They've had the Citadel Love Stories, which was a creative writing project to share stories about the LGBTQ+ community between young and older people. The cybersecurity workshops, teaching young and older people how to stay safe online. The Old School digital toolkit, and this emerged from a need to sustain intergenerational interaction during the COVID-19 pandemic, which aimed to assist the older adults in being comfortable with the technology of sort of hybrid living. So an effective intergenerational programme has the potential to provide tremendous benefits for its participants and to the wider community. These benefits are well documented in academic literature. However, what is not yet entirely clear is what the key ingredients are that are required for an intergenerational programme to produce such benefits. There must be a clear intention and aim, which each of the sessions to ensure that the activities are meaningful and mutually beneficial. Activities should be structured and focused on intergenerational learning and the sharing of skills and values. There should be a mutual benefit. This ensures the authenticity of an intergenerational programme. A support structure should be in place for the participants in each aspect of the session. Self-evaluation is very important. It helps participants to realise the potential of programmes for their development. And lastly, it's essential to allow time to build a presence within the community and with partner organisations. This can take years, however, it is essential to be consistent. And lastly, like with any project, there have been some challenges that the Citadel have needed to overcome to continue delivery of effective intergenerational practice to their young people and older adults. First, and probably the most challenging, is funding. So securing funding is a very long and difficult process, as I'm sure everyone agrees, but it's quite often the process is so long that the intergenerational project that you have built around specific participants with specific goals may have changed with time. For example, participants can move on, your goals can change. Some tokenism can occur within the field, so funders may impact how much control and co-design that can occur within the group. And you can get some bad practice occurring when a box ticking approach is followed. Sometimes key parts of the process are sidestepped. Secondly, a lack of understanding of what intergenerational practice is and why organisations are incorporating it can be a challenge. Often the purpose and benefits need to be communicated again and again to different stakeholders. Thirdly, communication with partners such as schools can pose challenges such as the high turnover of teachers. This can mean having to rebuild a working relationship and re-explain your project or programme to a new figurehead. Thirdly, there is the breaking down of stereotypes on the purpose of the programmes. For example, the purpose of the programme is sometimes misunderstood, with participants being referred to become a youth worker or to keep kids busy. However, the programmes are set up to support kids who are disengaging from education and to proactively develop skills and confidence. The fourth challenge that the Citadel has faced has been the delivery of digital IP. So hybrid and digital sessions can be problematic if not thoroughly planned, and issues can arise such as poor connection, participants not having devices, and a lack of familiarity with digital equipment. And the final challenge is building up a presence within the community, which can be a very, very long process, and it requires a great deal of effort and consistency. And lastly, I have included some contact information and sources used in the presentation on this slide. Thank you so much for listening today. And if you have any questions about the presentation or the intergenerational work that the Citadel do, I will try to answer them as best I can. Thank you so much.
Many thanks to Sarah, and it was an amazing project at Edinburgh. I like the intergenerational cafes activity at this center, and looking forward to see you next month. And also, I've seen there is questions for you at the dialogue box. Could you please check and answer it at the Q&A section? So next, we are moving to the next presenter. We have two speakers, Madhav and Professor Salama, for this topic. Madhav Patel is PhD in architecture from the University of Strathclyde, specialized in urban density as a research associate with Professor Salama at the University of Northumbria. She merges architecture and urban design with human-centered research. Her work encompassing teaching, design, and project management, and aims to elevate urban living through innovation, strategies, approaches, and methods. Our other speaker, Professor Ashraf Salama, is chair in architecture and urbanism and department head of architecture at the University of Northumbria in the UK, and co-leads the UNESCO UIA Architectural Education Commission, authoring over 200 articles and 17 books. His expertise spans architectural pedagogy to global urbanism. He is Archinet International Journal of Architectural Research chief editor and the 2017 UIA recipient of Jane Chumi Prize for Architectural Education and Criticism. So let's welcome our two speakers.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Professor Ashraf Salama sends his apologies. He could not attend. So I will be presenting this research. So first of all, I'm grateful for this opportunity that you've presented for the research. Now, in this research, we explored the essence of intergenerational connections, focusing on social, cultural, and emotional ties that bind different generations. Now, these bonds are forged through shared experiences, activities that we partake in together, the stories that we recount, and they are all facilitated by modern technology. So our approach is twofold. First, we adopt a co-assessment philosophy, inviting contributions from all generations to evaluate urban spaces. Second, we consider user perception and its role in design and decision-making. The effectiveness of these approaches have been tested and confirmed in urban spaces and at a street scale. So urban space is designed to encourage interaction, social cohesion among all generations. And this space in this image, it depicts diverse group of people across different generations interacting in a variety of urban settings, including interactive public art installations, technology-enhanced parks, community gardens, and pedestrian-friendly streets. Thus testing both these applications or both the cases for intergenerational connections in urban spaces and street presented a unique and a valuable opportunity. In public spaces, we aim to understand three things: actions and behaviors that illustrate how people interact with the space and each other through socializing, playing, exercising, and other activities; psychological conceptions that depict how these spaces influence feelings, attitudes, and perceptions of safety, belonging, and community. Third is the physical attributes that show the tangible aspects of public spaces, such as greenery, sitting areas, pathways, lighting, and so on. And looking at the current strategies for enhancing intergenerational connections in urban spaces, They include design of mixed parks and community spaces that everyone can enjoy, host activities, bring different ages together, and encourage living spaces while generations can mix daily. Then they also use technology to make the community life better, and it can be included in city planning as well. In short, it's like the strategies for smart design and inclusive policies can make city life better for everyone. But the gap in the current approach is the lack of co-assessment and user perception integration. This is mainly because of the limited stakeholder investment, insufficient feedback mechanism, and overlooked experience data. So the two cases try to address this gap and enhance our understanding of urban spaces by combining technology and human experience. Case 1 investigates the use of mobile technology through use of an mobile app called UWalk to evaluate urban open spaces. The co-assessment approach offers insights into temporal and spatial aspects of these spaces. And case study 2 examines how neural correlates, which is understood through a framework that segments and assesses urban environments using images, can inform our understanding of user perceptions. The image segmentation approach provides insights into how visual aspects of urban spaces influence people's emotional and cognitive responses. So to begin with case 1, it involved creation and use of UWalk, a mobile app for co-assessing urban open spaces. It highlights the significance of user engagement and public participation in urban design and planning processes. This application allows for evaluating the physical environment in detail using pictures creatively for analysis. It tracks location to provide context of the data. It turns the visual formats, data into visual formats for better understanding and decision making. This app aims at facilitating co-assessment of urban open spaces based on 3 dimensions: functional, social, and perceptual. The functional dimension refers to the ways in which people use and interact with urban open spaces to meet their needs, wants, and values. It provides users with the ability to evaluate functionality of a space based on various criteria such as accessibility, amenities, recreation, entertainment, cultural activities. Users can rate and provide their feedback on the physical layout and design of the space, including arrangement of buildings, street, and infrastructure. The social dimension emphasizes the role on urban open spaces in promoting social interaction and community engagement. In this dimension, people can assess the social aspects of space, including its inclusivity, safety, opportunities for recreation, relaxation, and socialization. The perceptual dimension is associated with the subjective experiences influenced by various factors, including the physical characteristics of the space, social and cultural norms, and individual experiences and expectations of urban open spaces. Users can share their opinions on aspects such as landscaping, visual appeal, noise levels, cleanliness, and the overall atmosphere. So this application underwent a field testing at a Grace Monument in Newcastle. It involved a diverse group of participants, around 88 participants, ranging from the age group of 18 to 55 years. These individuals were recruited through word of mouth and included both students and professionals, and it ensured a very varied sample for our study. This assessment process involved participants to use the app to interact with and evaluate the spaces using the real-time images as shown in the figure on the slide. So these individuals were guided through a series of 12 questions across 3 dimensions: functional, social, and perceptual, each designed to capture their rating of space in relation to the query. Using a 6-point Likert scale, they quantified their experiences and perceptions. The collected scores were aggregated and the results were presented as average ratings. Moving on to the assessment of Newcastle's monument shows that it's a well-loved space with great design and accessibility. It is praised for being a lively, inclusive spot that brings people together and it fits well in the city. People feel attached to it, and they generally find it comfortable and safe. However, there is a room to grow in ethnic diversity, better use of space, subdivision, and there is a need for nighttime safety. Now, moving on to the second case. The second case focused on understanding the user perception of the urban environment. This approach adds an additional layer for visual and spatial analysis. So this approach uses a concept of neural correlates. So this neural correlates, it includes approaches like image segmentation that help us understand the complex ways our brains respond to and process the visual elements of our surroundings, informing our perceptions of urban spaces. In this process of image segmentation, the image was selected and it was divided into 8 visual components: buildings, vegetation, streets, sky, pavements, people, vehicles, and streetscape elements. This study was conducted in Glasgow, and the images suggest the 3 images of the streetscapes are from Glasgow. The 3 streetscapes and their corresponding segmented image where different colors represent 8 of these elements. The line graphs next to these segmented images show the approximate percentage of the different components across each scene. Buildings take up the majority in each scene, ranging from 50 to 52%. Cars show about 1 to 7%. Pavements are significant component and account to roughly 23 to 25%. People, although present, they represent a very small fraction, and it comes to about 1 to 3%. Roads vary from 8 to 16. Sky is visible to varying degrees, and it is from 4 to 19%. Vegetation is either very sparse or not visible at all. These percentages help in understanding the visual composition of urban spaces and potentially how these proportions might influence people's perception and experience in these environments. Now, these images individually were also assessed using bipolar constructs, where the negative side is represents dull, depressing, overwhelming, whereas positive side is vibrant, cheerful, and comfortable. And these results were compared to the image segmentation results. It was found that the urban scenes with their high percentage of buildings and pavements suggest well-structured environments that people find comfortable and easy to navigate, possibly accounting for positive ratings. However, the low presence of greenery was a factor in areas perceived as less vibrant or dull. Introducing more vegetation could likely enhance the overall emotional response and contribute to the vibrancy and appeal of these spaces. Putting the two together, we arrived at a percentage of visual components that account for the positive perception. So this method yielded a detailed understanding of community perceptions of urban spaces, identified key features of physical environment that engage users across generations, and provide a pedestrian level experience of everyday urban experiences and how they can be perceived. Lastly, the implications of the 2 case studies. The studies provided an in-depth analysis of how urban areas function and are perceived by residents, contributing to comprehensive understanding from the visual perspective, physical perspective, and the emotional perspective. By examining user perception and component percentages, the studies identified the diverse needs and preferences of different age groups and how they perceive their urban environments. Then third one is the findings that can inform creation and design of programs and activities within the urban spaces to encourage interaction between generations. And insights from these studies could be used to design urban areas that are welcoming and accessible to all regardless of age. Finally, the case studies highlight the importance of creating urban spaces that can evolve over time to meet changing needs and uses, ensuring long-term sustainability and relevance. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your speeches, and it seems like a perfect research. And Thank you very much. So let's welcome our next speaker, Charlotte from the Intergenerational England. Charlotte Mueller studies at Northrop Robbins and obtained a master in music therapy. In 2005, she works as a music therapist in NHS hospitals, schools, and care houses, delivering a variety of music health and educational intergenerational programs. In 2017, Charlotte founded Intergenerational Music Making and has led as SHAPE with her team local and national initiatives. Thank you. Let's welcome Charlotte.
Great. Hi. Can you hear me and see my slides okay?
Yes.
You can. Great. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. And I'm thrilled to be here. I'm Charlotte Miller, Director of Intergenerational England, and we are dedicated to bringing the intergenerational divide and transforming public spaces into hubs of connection and inclusivity. Today, I'm excited to share insights on how we can foster transformative connections and create inclusive spaces to address societal challenges arising from ageism, social isolation, and other health conditions. So, Intergenerational England, who we are. Before we kind of delve into further discussions, I'd just like to introduce you all to a little bit about Intergenerational England. We're a passionate team committed to promoting intergenerational engagement and building stronger, more connected communities. So through research, advocacy, and collaborative initiatives, we strive to create inclusive spaces where individuals of all ages can thrive and belong. So an intergenerational approach, this can offer a foundation solution for connection between and among people across the life course. It's about recognizing the value of diverse experiences and fostering meaningful interactions that transcend age boundaries, ultimately leading to a more inclusive and cohesive communities. Adopting this paradigm can actively challenge and break down stereotypes and prejudices that tend to be associated with age. And by showcasing that people of different generations can relate, connect, and learn from one another, these interactions become powerful catalysts for promoting inclusivity. We know that building exchange of care and companionship can go a long way in nurturing a profound sense of unity and belonging, and thus dismantling the barriers of isolation. So it goes beyond promoting reintegration into society, but highlighting the intrinsic worth of every individual, regardless of their age. So intergenerational practice, I'm just going to go back and leave it on that slide. It's all encompassing and it's all inclusive. So by nature, as this slide shows, it is all encompassing. So it works across the life course and therefore across the sectors to help bridge gaps across people, professionals, and understanding. And that is what this slide here demonstrates. Collectively, we must recognise the multifaceted nature of an individual's well-being. It goes beyond traditional medical factors to incorporate social, cultural, and economic aspects, acknowledging that health is intricately linked to the conditions in which people are born, grow, live, work, and age. In addressing issues like loneliness, it is imperative to therefore adopt a holistic perspective that encompasses these broader determinants and therefore link sectors together. So we can't work in silos. Loneliness and other health conditions such as depression and anxiety are prevalent across all age groups and can have profound impacts on well-being. By addressing these challenges holistically, we can create environments that support mental, emotional, and physical health for individuals of all ages. It is imperative that we look at health, well-being, and community, and we acknowledge the wider determinants and the part that places and spaces play in creating a supportive and nurturing environment for people to flourish. So when we look at the term flourishing and what it means, social connection, warm spaces, feelings of belonging are all key ingredients for people to feel like they are living a good life. And this was most recently echoed in a piece of research that was published yesterday, by Historic England. And the report, I suggest, if you haven't read it, it's a fantastic report. It demonstrates that with the positive impact of green spaces on well-being, the very presence of nearby historic places benefits residents' quality of life, whether or not they participate in heritage activities. So that was out yesterday. So the role of physical spaces in fostering social connection. Public spaces play a pivotal role in facilitating social connection and community cohesion. Community centres, parks, and other shared spaces serve as gathering points where individuals can come together, interact, and forge meaningful relationships across generations. Through strategic decision and renewal efforts, we can maximise the potential of these spaces to foster intergenerational engagement and combat social isolation. So our journey begins with reimagining public spaces as more than mere physical environments, but as catalysts for meaningful interactions across generations. And Intergenerational England envisions public spaces as dynamic ecosystems where diverse perspectives converge, fostering collaboration and mutual understanding. Central to our approach is the concept of the third space, so neutral grounds beyond the confines of home and work. And these spaces serve as vibrant canvases for intergenerational engagement, nurturing connections and breaking down age-based barriers. Through the strategic expansion and renewal of public spaces, we aim to create welcoming environments that promote inclusivity and belonging. There is a video there, but I'll put the link in the chat as we're quite tight on time. So over the last 12 months in Intergenerational England, we've led a series of research and consultation events, engaging cross-sector partners to deepen our understanding on intergenerational dynamics within the broader ecosystem. Through these consultations, a clear theme has emerged, and the significance of physical space in facilitating intergenerational connections just keeps popping up. We found through our research the importance of cross-sector partnership working. So our consultations brought together stakeholders from various sectors, including healthcare, social care, youth services, housing, architects, education, and volunteering. And across the board, there was a consensus on the critical role that physical space plays in promoting intergenerational engagement. So by collaborating across sectors, we can leverage expertise and resources to create environments that foster meaningful interactions and positive social cohesions. Community centres, they were highlighted as key hubs, so multi-use centres for holistic support. Community centres emerge as central hubs for intergenerational connection. These spaces provide a neutral ground where individuals from different age groups can come together, interact, and forge relationships. However, it's not just about the buildings themselves, it's about reimagining the spaces in between. From green areas to foyers and corridors, every inch of physical space offers an opportunity to promote connection and encourage dialogue. Addressing gaps in understanding. So despite recognizing the importance of physical space, there remains a gap in our understanding of how architecture and urban design impact community dynamics. So by investing in research and data collection initiatives, we can gain valuable insight into how the built environment influences social interactions and relationships across generations. We also found from our research importance around taking into note the importance of leadership and champions, the importance of promoting inclusivity and accessibility, looking at community engagement mechanisms, which are vital. So very much shaping the project's delivery and having that community input. And finally, our recommendations for action are moving forward. We recommend fostering cross-sector collaborations that prioritize the creation of intergenerational friendly spaces. So this includes advocating for policies that support mixed use developments, incorporating intergenerational design principles into urban planning guidelines, and investing in community-led initiatives that promote inclusive environments. By working together, we can build bridges across sectors and generations, creating vibrant communities where everyone feels valued and connected. And my final two slides, this one's around partnerships and collaboration. So achieving our vision requires partnerships and collaboration across the sectors. by working hand in hand with local governments, community organisations and urban planners. We are very passionate about working together to integrate intergenerational principles into the fabric of our cities and towns, ensuring that public spaces reflect the needs and aspirations of all community members. So to date, we are exploring social value work within the housing sector. We are consulting with architects to look at how to gather insight and data from how people use spaces. And we've also launched Intergenerational England Housing Steering Group. So if you're interested in joining that, please do reach out. And to conclude, so the transformation of public spaces into inclusive hubs of intergenerational engagement holds immense potential in addressing societal challenges and fostering community resilience. By prioritising the role of physical space and embracing a holistic approach to urban design, we can create environments that promote social connection, well-being, and belonging for individuals of all ages. So please do reach out and get in touch. We love to work with you all. And we're very passionate about continuing to champion the expansion of public spaces and foster transformative connections that enrich the lives of all community members. With thanks for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Actually, it's really to see the music programs for the intergenerational collaborations from my aspect and understanding. So it's really interesting project. And also Charlotte might be leave before 2 o'clock for her work. So if you have any question for her, please put at the dialog box and I will share her email address if you have more question to her. So next, welcome our last speaker, Carolina Campos Rueda. She is from Spain and she is Macrosat Chair in Intergenerational Studies at the University of Grenada. Since 2019 of March, she has been part of the Macrosat Chair in Intergenerational Studies team. She has specialized in intergenerational projects and has followed specific training in intergenerational practice. So, hi.
So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carolina Campos Rueda, and I'm part of the Macrosat Chair in Intergenerational Studies at the University of Granada in Spain. Thank you very much for counting on us for this excellent seminar. In my presentation, I'm going to describe some feasibility criteria for the designation of public spaces as intergenerational contact zones as a result of our research in the chair. First of all, what is an intergenerational contact zone? According to the definition proposed by Professor Matt Kaplan of the Penn State University, intergenerational contact zones serve as special focal points for different generations to meet, interact, build relationships, and, if desired, work together to address issues of local concern. Intergenerational contact zones can be found in all types of community settings, including schools, senior centers, retirement communities, parks, reading rooms, museums, community gardens, multi-service community centers, and so on. How can we know that a concrete space is an intergenerational contact zone? Let's look at a couple of examples. This image shows a planter in a yard at a co-located adult day services and child development laboratory school at Virginia Tech. This planter is itself an intergenerational contact zone because it's inviting and promoting in an intentional way the meeting and the interaction between people of different ages and even different physical features. This furniture located in this space makes it easier to get together, especially to get together in the space. Now you are looking at the INTER, the Intergenerational Reference Center of Macrosat in Albolote, Granada, here in Spain. This center houses in the same building a nursery school that you can see on the left of the image, and a daycare center for older people on the right. This is the same building where intergenerational interactions take place on a daily basis. They have daily intergenerational connections. The older people can go to the nursery school, and the children can go to the daycare center. And it's also open to have interactions with other local organizations and the community. Why is this an intergenerational contact zone? Because the whole space has been designed, thought, and created intentionally to promote intergenerational interactions, coexistence, and relationships among people of different generations: children, older people, staff, families, caregivers, and the local community. We have chosen these two pictures to show that an intergenerational contact zone doesn't have to be huge and complex like a big building. It can be little and simple, like a planter, for example. They are intergenerational, enriched settings, plenty of opportunities for intergenerational connections and cohesion. Let's take a moment to answer this question. What does it mean to create an intergenerationally enriched setting? It's not just a matter of taking spaces into account. It's looking to align intergenerational programs, policies, places, process, values, and also partnerships. Having said that, our team wanted to specify what exactly a space has to have in order to consider it as an intergenerational contact zone. Since its creation in 2018, the Macrosab Chair in Intergenerational Studies at the University of Granada has been working to identify the best practices to be carried out in order to achieve greater social cohesion and a reduction of ageism through intergenerational relationships. We took as basis a chapter in a book entitled Intergenerational Programs and Intergenerational Contact Zones, Aligning Notions of Good Quality, written by Mariano Sanchez, who is the director of the chair, and other colleagues. In this chapter were defined the quality domains, guidelines, and indicators for intergenerational contact zones as programming tool. Later, and more recently, through the research project Plus Thinter, whose full title is Combating Age Segregation and Ageism in Andalusia, Design and Validation of Programs and Intergenerational Contact Zones. We have pursued to understand much better the current situation in Andalusia, the most southern region in Spain, with regard to age segregation and ageism, and how to confront this phenomena. Plus Thinter's overall aim has been to contribute to the creation in Andalusia of effective, innovative, and validated intergenerational settings, spaces, places, programs, to reduce and revert age segregation and discrimination. In this context, a group of international intergenerational specialists have been convened to validate feasibility criteria for the designation of intergenerational contact zones. In all, 11 experts have been involved in a two-round Delphi study implemented in the period March-June 2023 that started out by circulating a first draft of feasibility criteria based both on the available literature and from the field knowledge, in the purpose of specifying which space or spaces are considered more appropriate for housing and facilitating intergenerational practices and programs. These criteria intend to assess the fit between potential or actual physical settings and intergenerational practices and programs that will take place at them. As a result, 16 feasibility criteria have been obtained. Let's have a look about the criteria. Number one, intentionality. The space receives and welcomes people of different generations. Number 2, space is conducive to interaction. The space has the equipment, resources, and infrastructure needed to facilitate and promote interaction between different generations. By resources, we mean any human, material, technical, or financial elements that may actually use to facilitate and promote integration between the different generations. Number 3, adaptation to diversity. The space is flexible in that it allows the persons involved to adapt their resources, moving them around if necessary, according to their needs and interests. By persons involved, we mean persons who share the space and are committed to facilitating and promoting integration between the different generations. Number 4, choice. The space is conducive to the people involved choosing the extent to which they wish to engage in intergenerational activities, allowing them to make informed decisions on whether to enter or to leave the space and how to do so. Number 5, continuity. The space allows and encourages intergenerational actions to take place over time. Number 6, exchange, cooperation, and reciprocity. The space is conducive to interaction and exchange between the different generations involved. Relationship focused, the space provides opportunities for the people involved to form meaningful relationships. 8, identity and visibility. The space enables all age groups and generations to see each other and be seen, so that they can feel like part of the same community. By community, we mean a set of people connected by values, ideals, interests, who share a sense of identity. 9, community connection. The space is connected to the traditions and cultural legacies and the relevant values of the surrounding community. The surrounding community is the community located in the immediate area. Community involvement, the space is open to the surrounding community, and the members of this community take part in planning activities and making use of the space. Number 11, community awareness of space. The intergenerational practices and programs carried out in the space are made known to the community's families, young people, adults, so that they are aware of the existence of this space and know how it can be accessed. Number 12, institutional support and interest. The space has sufficient institutional support, financial or social support, to be sustainable as an intergenerational space. By sufficient support, we mean that it fulfills what is necessary to respond to the sustainability of the space. Number 13, specialization. The space has a team of specialized people who promote and facilitate intergenerational relationships. Specialized people are people with proven experience and specific dedication in the intergenerational field. Number 14, planning. The space is conducive to intergenerational actions being designed and planned intentionally and in advance. 15, spontaneity. The space allows and encourages the different generations to interact in a spontaneous and informal manner. And the last one, number 16, environmental cues. The space includes elements, photographs, posters, whatever, that indicate what type of intergenerational interactions is considered pertinent. Pertinent means adequate or congruent with the purposes pursued by the intergenerational contact zone. To sum up, these criteria cover dimensions such as intentionality, adaptation to diversity, exchange, cooperation, reciprocity, or community connections through intergenerational contact zones. These feasibility criteria for designating intergenerational contact zones can be applied in the process of selecting which public spaces may facilitate contact between different generations and social cohesion more successfully. You can see the team that has created this report of results from one of our research projects, but we have a longer paper under review.
Sorry for interrupting you. 3 minutes left.
Okay, I'm finishing.
Okay. Yes.
But Thank you. We have a longer paper under review, which we hope to publish shortly. That's all. Thank you very much for your attention. We hope it has been an interesting topic for you. And this is our contact email if you want to receive more information. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Actually, once your paper have been published, could you inform me that I'm really interested in your topic? Just please let me know once the paper has published.
Yeah, sure. I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you so
Yanya.
much. So
Thank you.
let's welcome our last presenter of today's seminar. Let's welcome Aisha Gulboyelet. She is a PhD student at the Cultural Studies Department of Yıldız Technical University in Turkey, also working as a research assistant at Sakarya University. She is interested in urban sociology with a particular focus on social production and construction of urban public green and shifting politics of public space and landscape ideologies.
Okay, thank you so much for providing this floor. My name is Ayşegül. I'm a PhD candidate at Yıldız Technical University, Cultural Studies Department, and today I will be presenting the varying social uses and meanings of urban public green space among different generations through the case of Istanbul's Valdebağ Grove. My broader research questions are: how does the growing dominance of exchange value over the use value in neoliberal urban regimes affect the social uses of historical public gardens among different generations? And how does the sort of place for public green vary among different age groups in Istanbul? And my aim is to show the competing and shared values and practices among different age groups vis-a-vis the shifting landscape of Istanbul, and to discuss to what extent the historical public gardens today can accommodate meaningful encounters between different generations. So a little introduction of my case. Valdebağ Grove is a public grove, an inner city green space in Istanbul. It's also the second largest green zone of the Asian Anatolian part of the city, and it's also a Grade 1 natural site area, and it's also historically a significant place as a palimpsest reflective of the shifting political and economic regimes of the country. And my methodology is urban political ecology, which considers urban green as an ongoing site of struggle existing through the complex historical power relations. And I try to combine the approaches of social production and social construction of nature to both consider the political economic production and subjective narratives and ways of meaning making of urban green. In terms of methods, my study is a qualitative study. I completed my archival work on the history of the Valdebağ's landscape, and I have an ongoing ethnography through the field visits, oral history, participant observation, semi-structured interviews with the current users of the grove, and walk and talks, and many informal interviews. In order to present the social production of space, I would like to begin with the historical geography of Valdebağ and its transforming landscape. It was established as a pleasure garden and a vineyard orchard for the female sultanas of the court in the modernization period of the Ottoman society in the 19th century. Then, after the constitution of Turkish Republic, with the change in the political regime, it became a space of public health for the needed people and became a preventorium and sanatorium center. And in the aftermath of 1980s, together with Istanbul's becoming a world city and the implementation of urban neoliberal regime, we see the beginning of the commercialization of Valdebağ Grove and struggles against this. I will be focusing on this historical part a bit more. When we return the preventorium period after the constitution of the Republic, we see that after the World War I, in order to fix the population crisis after the wars and in order to raise the, let's say, robust generations of the newly constituted nation states, some of the royal gardens of Istanbul transformed to public health institutions, and Validebaz was one of among them. And it served to especially the low-income family children and teachers across the country as a part of social state policies. And during that time, the state had a protectionist state economy, and Validebaz Grove was directed through the revolving fund and provided food provision for own population through the agricultural production via extensive wine, vegetable yards and animal husbandry in the grove. So you can see some visuals from the archive in here. And the children, the low-income family children, received health treatment and also educational facilities in the Validebaz. So it was an education center as well. They did some physical exercises, took basic classes such as nature. And here are some female and male teachers resting in Validebaz. As you can trace from the visuals, there was this accommodation of different age group of patients in the preventorium period before the 1980s, and through the coexistence of the teachers, students, nursery school students coming across the country. But no social mix was allowed between female and male patients by the administration due to the threat of the disease transmission. And students and teachers received treatment in the different floors of the hospital structures. But the garden was a common space in the permitted free hours of the patients. But there were disciplined teachers who were controlling the space and the patient's movements and navigation and behavior as a matter of biopolitics. In the mid-90s, there was the cease of public health services in the grove due to the end of tuberculosis in the country. When we look at the aftermath of 1980 coup d'etat, we see the liberalization of Turkish economy with the assistance of the military rule, which made Istanbul a world city and market Istanbul to the global platform. And we see the implementation of neoliberal urban policies, which manifested in the enclosure of urban green for capital accumulation as a spatial fix, and rising spatial governance by the municipal powers, and erasure of rural elements in the city space, such as destroying cities' historical market gardens existing since the Byzantium era. And how all this manifested in Validebaz Grove. When we look at its shift in nature after the 1980 coup d'etat, we see the growing dominance of exchange value over the use value with the removal of the revolving fund at the first place, and then the cease of agricultural production and destruction of vegetable yards and dairy farms, which are indicators of the use value in the grove. And we also see the rising spatial governance on grove's habitat by local government to renovate the space for economic value. And through the construction of housing sites at grove's border, we see that Validebaz turned out to be a backyard for the luxury mansions bordering the grove. And since the 1990s, Validebaz is a public space which is struggled over by different social groups. As I indicated, there is the rising power of local municipalities on urban green space in Istanbul after the coup d'etat. And in Validebaz, we see that beginning from the 1990s, the Üsküdar municipality tried to redesign the grove in the image of gentility through top-down park development projects and opening grove for construction and commercialization through the entertainment facilities, playgrounds, walking tracks, car parks, restaurants, and cafeterias, and enclosing some of the former picnic areas and museumization of its historical heritage. For instance, these are images from the park plans of the municipality, which aims to transform the grove to a structured and controlled park both controlling its environment and controlled forms of publicity indeed, and domesticating its habitat. These are before and after pictures. We see the concretization of the front garden of the old historic pavilion in here. For instance, older sanatorium was transformed to a cafeteria with the commercialization of the zone, and formerly picnic areas were fenced by the cafeterias, mushroom cafeterias indeed, through abandoning the bringing food and drink from the outside. And there's also this dimension of the life space, the representational realm, and the use value by the everyday users of the grove. First thing is, earlier preventorium and sanatorium buildings were transformed to Teachers Eventide Home, School of Nursing, Teachers Hospital, and Teachers Cultural Lodge, which created new forms of public life. And the surrounding neighborhood residents excursively used the space as a recreational public space since mid-1970s, but heavily in 1990s. And since 1990s, to defend the natural and historical richness of the space, the neighborhood communities struggled against the top-down park projects offered by the municipality, and they established a grassroots initiative called Valdeba Volunteers and declared the grove as a Nature One site area as a consequence of their struggles over space. And it's a long history of struggles, which is culminated and empowered in the aftermath of the resistance in 2000 Turkey, which was a nationwide uprising in Turkey to defend democratic urban public spaces with the coming togetherness of different social groups, different generations, and different identities. I will return to this a bit more. And when we look at the current landscape, we see that everyday users of the grove is the retired people around the neighborhood who pass time from afternoon to the evening in every season. Single elderly usually pass time in cafeterias with peers, and they visit the group to socialize, to meet new people, read newspaper, have a discussion regarding the news, and not to stay alone at home. And senior citizens who have grandchildren pass time and play with grandchildren in the grove when the parents are working during the day hours. And there's the Valdeba volunteers that I already mentioned, and they are also everyday users of the grove, which heavily consists of the senior citizens who devote themselves to the protection of social nature of Valdeba and arrange their lives according to this space. I would like to share an anecdote from here, from one of my interviews. Arif, who is age 64, responded me that I would move to another city if I was sure that the municipality do not open grove to construction. Now I cannot go to even my summer house due to the fear that what if the municipality invades here all of a sudden with earth moving machines when we are not here. So solidarity and activism is form of a publicity for the senior citizens in Valdeba who conduct protests, regular meetings, judicial activism, tree planting, consciousness raising activities, and organizing children festival in each year in the open areas. And one of their slogans is Valdeba belongs to children. And when we move on with the Gen X, Gen X usually visit the grove for 1 or 2 days in a week and prefer open areas rather than commercial ones. And different from the elderly population, they use Valdeba to be alone in nature, to commune with nature, being far away from the crowds of the city to find solitude and isolation. And they prefer to have time alone, and they come to Valdeba to be alone. But parents enjoy having time at nature with children, and they consider here as a quiet and secure place, and they occasionally have picnic and meeting with friends in the weekends. When we pass to the Gen Y, we see that they have similar interests with Gen X, such as reading book, walking alone, doing support, but they also enjoy conviviality, and parents also enjoy having meaningful time with the children in nature, as Grove is a not arbitrary place for them. They enjoy rural life in the city with children and like to teach children the nature, tree planting, kite flying, etc. And the presence of senior citizens make them feel more safe, as they answered. We see that there's intergenerational transmission of collective memory through those who have been neighbors for many years in there. So they enjoy visiting the areas they had fun in their childhood and narrate their memories to children. And
Sorry for interrupting you. 3 minutes left.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. And they support environmental struggle through joining protests, but they are also grateful to senior citizens struggling for the growth, but they sorry for falling short in terms of not presenting active participation in the regular meetings. I will return to this in the conclusion. And Gen Z visit the group mostly for the historical pavilion to see the Hababam Class Museum, which was an iconic theme for young and old alike and shot in this historic pavilion. And students residing in the neighborhood use Grove as an after-school activity. And they enjoy having time with peers, but they also choose the locations far away from the crowds, such as families where they have picnics. And there's Gen Alpha, the kindergarten students mostly. As I already told, there's an event item in the Valide Grove, and the existence of teachers event item in the Grove provides the encounter of the elderly population with the children and promotes social mixings of different social groups. One of my respondents, who is at the age 34 and who is a teacher of the kindergarten school and who brought the children in the Grove, told me that we usually meet the teachers residing in the event item and chat with them. Sometimes you greet retired teachers passing by because they have more life experiences, especially when we have the opportunity to chat with those coming from event items. They also teach a life lesson. When I ask, is it just you talking or do the children also meet with them? She said they greet the children. The children also say hello. That's how the conversation begins. At this point, I am happy. Actually, it's good that the retired people have such an area. You know, they are already lonely and living alone. It's nice for them to use these areas as a therapy. And at the weekends, there is a conviviality and vibrant form of public life in the Valide Grove. And there is this intergenerational social interactions and connections among the teenage generation families who have fun picnics in the open areas. And also the social interactions among different families. And different generations want Valide Park to preserve as a grove rather than a structured park and enjoy its loose and non-formal style and unstructured environment. And rather than homogeneous top-down park projects, users consider Grove as a unique space, representative of the vernacular uses of the space, a public life from the bottom that they develop and feel sense of belonging. But there are also challenges in terms of the generation gap in urban activism on natural and cultural conservation. Younger generations show more interest in grassroots activism in Valdeba through attending the protests, but they do not show active participation in regular meetings, but participate when there is an event, such a protest for the elderly population. One of my respondents, who is at the age of 42, told me that I'm going to be an activist when my children grow up, indicating the family responsibilities and harsh working conditions. And when I ask about the opinions regarding the activism of Valdeva volunteers. Another respondent stated that, who is at the age of 33, she meant the senior citizen activists are right. It's a rightful rebel for them. Indeed, they do not protest for their own profit. They protect here for us. They hold firm. They do this for us. There are no young people like us among them. I mean, they struggle for here to stay for us. I can say that they struggle for us more than us. Indeed, the grove is preserved thanks to them. So there's this generation gap in terms of conservation policies.
Sorry to disturb you. The time's up. You can explain more at the Q&A session. Is that okay for you? Thank you so much. And thank you to all our presenters for track 2 section. Before we move to the Q&A section, I would like to ask all of our participants to turn on your camera, and let us to have group photos before we move to the Q&A section. Okay, so let's move to the Q&A section. I've seen that there's so many questions in our chat box, and I've seen that a few of our presenters already answered the questions. So I think that we can move to our second presenter. She's not answered any question yet. Could you open your microphone to answer the question? And is it? She's here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Could you answer the questions, please?
Yes, I will answer. I went through the questions in the chat. So for Agad, this is factors. Yes, so the application itself has around 36 questions, and these 36 questions, they explain 36 concepts under functional, social, and perceptual dimensions. And there is a possibility of adding one more question if at all you want. So you could go to the website. I will just paste the link of the website here. You can download the app and you can try it for your own. And it's also for Danudru, right? Yeah, the second question. So yes, this application can be used anywhere throughout the world. Since this application allows you to access Google Photographs, so you can just enter your name of the urban space. You can download those photographs and you can continue the assessment. So it can be done anywhere around the world. As far as our image segmentation is concerned, so image segmentation, yes, it could be done for facades also. And but you have to be very specific. It is image segmentation generally, it's like an AI and it's a software. So if you are focusing on facades, then you have to do certain manual work, which will be time consuming, but it can be done. And these two studies have been tested in Newcastle itself, but they've also been tested in Glasgow and other parts of the cities or country actually. Right.
Thank you for answering my question, madam.
Thank you.
So is there any questions for Madhav as well? If no, that we can move to other questions. Do we have the questions for... Sorry, there's so many messages from our chat box. I'm still checking. There is a new question for Sarah from Devi. Devi, can you open your microphone to ask your question again?
Okay. Thank you, Jackie, for the opportunities. Sarah, just curious about the age range that you choose is between for young people is between 12 to 18. Is there any consideration for it? And I just curious about the how did you engage your participants to involve into your project? And The last question is about the participants that involved in your project is in category of vulnerable participants. So based on UK regulations, it's might be struggling with the ethical or maybe any permissions issue. So do you face that kind of thing as well? I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your question. So to start off, so the age range is between 12 to 18. This is because a lot of the projects they're school-based. So you're like the local high schools. So 12 to 18 is your typical age range for high schools in the area of Edinburgh. So that's why we have that sort of age group. We also find that teenagers are very effective when it comes to working in the projects with older adults because they have a lot to say, and there tends to be more benefits that come out of the sessions for this age group. And we also find that this tends to be the age where, unfortunately, some of them might start to be disengaging from school. They're getting a bit older, they may be experiencing issues that you get with that age range. So we find that they're just a very effective age group to have in these programs. And then to answer your other part of the question, how did you engage these participants? So it is tricky. It's very tricky. And I think I mentioned earlier, a lot of the young people in the programs have they might be neurodivergent, they might have ADHD. Sometimes, you know, they might come to the session, they've maybe had like an energy drink. So you have to like keep these things in mind where there's constantly, I think the planning of the sessions is what really keeps the kids engaged. But not only that, the expertise of the youth workers that are there, and the youth workers have these sort of learning partnerships with the young people, and they have like a progress plan with them, and yeah, they're basically essential to keeping the kids on track and keeping the focus going during the programs. And also there's a respect between the young people and the older adults, because the older adults don't really, they're not in the same position as teachers are and youth workers. They don't expect anything from them. And then what we see is that the younger people really appreciate that, and they have these very close bonds with the older adults. So all it really takes is one of the older adults to say, you know, come on kids, let's do this, like calm down a little bit. And, you know, the respect, you can really see it in the program. So yeah, that's pretty essential, I would say. And then to answer your part about the ethical approval, so I haven't actually started collecting data yet. I'm only in my first year. What I'm doing at the moment is volunteering. But when it comes to that stage, so I'm about to do my ethics application, I've had a PVG check, which basically means that I'm okay to be around the young people, sorry. And on top of that, I will be doing an ethical application, obviously, for the research for ethnography, which is observing the participants and recording field notes. And then I will also be detailing my other methods, so like interviews, participatory methods like photo elicitation and focus groups. But yeah, so basically going to have a rigorous ethics application with that. And also the fact that the youth workers are always with me. I'm never left alone with the children. So, but that is a requirement, definitely. So I hope that answers your question, and thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
So do we have more questions for Sarah? If we don't have question for her yet, that we can move to.
I think there was maybe one, sorry, I think there was maybe one from Kling. I hope I'm saying your name properly.
Sorry, there's so many questions.
Sorry, I'll be quick. I've actually written my response for this one just to be quick for you. So Kling, thank you so much for your question, and I hope I'm saying your name correctly. I think that the older people, so your question was, how do older people find digital toolkits, especially coding and CAD design? Is it difficult for them? I'm interested in knowing if they would use the skill to create something in their interest. So I think that the older people, they've got such a curiosity and a positive mindset to learning that this attitude kind of counteracts any apprehensiveness towards trying things like coding and CAD design. And then the voluntary aspects of the program also takes away some of the pressure of learning unfamiliar technologies and skills, because they get to dictate how much they want to engage. And because of this, they have more confidence in giving these activities a try. Another factor that enables older adults to fully participate in these sessions is the support structure that exists in every session. So the Citadel built up a network of partners and specialists that come in and lead the more challenging sessions, with the volunteers there as a support team to help with any additional needs, such as like sight and hearing. The young people have developed very close friendships with the older adults and are always helping them to try new things, especially on the digital side of things. And I think that in terms of trying to use new skills in their own time, I've definitely observed the activities that they've tried in the intergenerational programs becoming a new interest or hobby for the older adults. So the Citadel maintains ongoing communication with partner organisations who've led digital sessions, and often invite them back or send resources so that the participants can develop the skills that they're interested in. Another way the older adults have contributed with the digital delivery of intergenerational practice at the Citadel is by contributing to the knowledge of the toolkit by providing their experiences and perceptions of how to best support older adults with digital delivery, skills and sessions. And much like the young people of the programs, the older adults' progress within the programs monitored and evaluated. And this can mean keeping track of any skills and interests that they may want to explore further, which informs the decisions of the Citadel, makes in which sessions activities to redeliver and build upon. For example, we had an older adult express an interest in science and space, and so we had a session led by the Dynamic Earth team, where participants could try virtual reality goggles, which showed them what it was like to be on a space station. And they had brought space rocks, which were estimated to be older than Earth, and a box that meant you could smell what the moon smells like, which was really fascinating. And then the older adults also got involved with creating rockets, which like blasted off into the sky, and they were made out of bottles, liquids, and fizzy tablets, and it created a buildup of gas within the bottle. So yeah, it definitely builds upon the interest of the older adults, and they're definitely support in trying these new skills and maintaining them. Thank you for your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Clean, and you pronounce my name perfectly. So thank you very much. And for my interest on this topic, because I am working as a part-time tech skill builders for the community back to Canada now. So and by the way, I'm also the first year PhD student in Canada. So I quite like your ideas on all these skills buildings and generations. So that is just why I have all these questions. It's a bit a lot. So thank you very much. And I learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And shall we move to next presenter? Do we have any questions for Carolina from the Spain? If you have any question that you can put at the chat box or turn on your microphone to ask. If nobody gonna ask, I gonna have a question for Carolina. I've seen that from your presentation slides that there is a point of number 16. You've mentioned the environmental cues. Is that? Are you here?
No,
Yeah.
I think she left.
Yeah, she's here.
Is she? Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
yes.
want to ask, have you start to research on focus on these elements for intergenerational public spaces, or you just present focus points as suggestions to other researchers to focus on?
Well, the research is based on the knowledge, on the literature, but it's also from the field knowledge. So we have talked with experts of the theory, but we have also explored real intergenerational shared sites and spaces. So the thing is that in the Number 16, the environmental cues are like clues. The space has some elements like photographs or posters or some sentences, pictures that indicate what type of intergenerational interactions is considered pertinent or adequate for the intergenerational contact zone in concrete. For example, if it's an intergenerational contact zone for reciprocal learning with I don't know, with a reading program, for example, with different generations, you can see on the walls, for example, pictures and examples of books of people reading together, talking together, these kind of things. So the space invites to the relationship.
Yes, may I know that how if a group of younger people would like to play the skateboard that our keynote speaker mentioned this morning, that he mentioned that the skateboard player is annoying other peoples, is it? So it's a type of behaviors at the public spaces, and also they might be a young people at the public spaces, and also probably will affect to other different generations group people. So do you think this is a good environments at the public space? Do we need to avoid for this kind of activities? Because he mentioned that it's broadly, but I don't think it's broadly for all people, but based on your research experience and your understanding of the Spanish elderly people and children, how do you think of this?
Well, I think it depends also on the culture of the country. I'm thinking, for example, here in my country, there are a lot of separated spaces for different generations because of that, because of maybe some activities can be annoying for another people. But I don't think it's a question of different generations. I think it's a question of different personalities. It's not because it's one generation or another generation. I think it's because the personal preferences about the use of the space or something like that. Maybe I could have a better answer if I could look at my notes. So maybe if I have a better answer, I can send it to you in order to have.
Send it by email to me, because I'm researching the similar projects.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm focusing on these kind of elements for my project.
Nice. So we can stay in touch to
Yes,
to
please.
share information. Of course.
Yeah,
Thank you.
please, thank you. And do we have any question for Aishagu, our last presenter? If no, that actually I think we already have disposed the finish time. So shall we close our seminar of today's now?
Yes, we can close, but before we close, we'd like to thank everyone for your valuable time. I think your participation today has been excellent, really enriching for all of us, and for many of the speakers and the participants and the attendees today. And I already see in the chat box people exchanging emails and connections, and we'll have follow-up discussions. So I think that is the main purpose of having the event today, is to build a network and to learn from each other's work and research as well. And hopefully we keep up with our communications in the future as well. We would like to keep you in touch and let you be informed about our future events as well. But thank you very much for coming today and for your excellent discussions and excellent presentations. And I hope to see you all soon again. and wish you all a very excellent, good Easter break as well. It's coming very soon. So thank you very much to all.